If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 201, Gojo's Arrival. Shaking his head, Lorien observed Tenjin for a couple of moments, gazing into her eyes as he couldn't help but think about what she just said. There is indeed a need for a manager who can intervene when required. After all, the nightmare spirits may become too strong for the dream path walkers if they, DP walkers, don't enter the nightmare realm for a long time and let the spirits grow without any limits. By then, the manager needs to suppress their growth and set certain seals. Or the opposite, as the nightmare spirits may become too weak with the dream path walkers slaughtering too many of them. By then, the manager needs to limit the number of times that dream path walkers can enter the nightmare realm. While this task can be automated, this may cause some issues as God knows what kind of trick those people can come up with. After all, there are no laws with no loopholes. So, a manager is truly required, and Tenjin is indeed the most suitable candidate considering how much time she spent managing Japan's barrier without any problems. Not to mention that when I created this path, I purposefully added the Cursed Energy Path Pact characteristics so that Dream Path walkers can also create binding vows. This, alongside my power as a basis, can guarantee that managers don't use their authority for personal gains, at least not while affecting other people. Additionally, even if I were to choose Tenjin as a manager, this doesn't mean that I'll only have her in this position. Instead, there must be a manager in each country and maybe even more than one depending on its size. After all, it would be very impractical for a single manager to oversee the operation of the nightmare realm that spans the entire planet. Analyzing all of this, Lorien then finally nodded in response, giving her a preliminary agreement. I need to think more about it, but, for now, your proposal is accepted. Hearing this, the smile on Tenjin's face quickly grew into a wide grin as she couldn't hide the joy in her heart. After all, since absorbing the information that Lorien gave her, she knew that she had become a nightmare spirit that may be killed at any moment by dream path walkers. Moreover, after becoming a nightmare spirit, she can no longer leave the nightmare realm without permission and is effectively imprisoned there with other spirits. And considering her position for the last 1,000 years as the core of human jujutsu sorcerers, she didn't think that those spirits will be friendly to her. Not to mention that now, after her wish is finally achieved and she got a human body back, she still wants to walk around society and observe this new era with her own eyes. So, all things considered, getting such authority is the only way out for her, as it will not only allow her to contribute to this new era but also have the ability to jump between the two realms. Additionally, there is the added benefit of protection, as she didn't think that there won't be a power boost once one becomes a nightmare realm manager. After all, to manage such monsters, one needs great strength as a guarantee. Cough. Hearing the sudden light cough, Tenjin was instantly startled, causing her to wake up from her daze. All right, now that everything is settled, you could either go back to the nightmare realm or watch the show with me here, spoke Lorien in response to Tenjin's confused gaze. The show? Yes, Kenjaku is currently plotting something. Are you interested in watching it? However, different from what Lorien expected, when Tenjin heard that it was a plot made by Kenjaku, a bored look appeared on her face, not appearing surprised or interested. It seems that in her long life, she had witnessed such scenes more than once and had grown numb to them. Just send me back. Hearing this, Lorien shrugged indifferently as he then waved his hand, causing Tenjin to disappear from her position. Doing this, Lorien then finally turned his attention back to Shibuya, where the battle was about to commence. It's just that while Lorien was sitting leisurely and taking sips from the carbonated drink that had just materialized, the higher UPS and the top jujutsu sorcerers in Japan were having a mental breakdown. After all, the collapse of Tenjin's barrier to them is no different from the apocalypse suddenly commencing. In fact, the higher UPS were so horrified that they wanted to ignore Shibuya and send Gojo to see what was happening with Tenjin. However, as the latter was already on his way to Shibuya, he didn't get the memo. Not to mention that even if he got it, he would have probably ignored them, as he was more interested in saving the people in Shibuya than whatever barrier. But, while he didn't receive any information from anyone, this doesn't mean that he didn't feel the change that had just occurred. Tenjin's barrier has collapsed. Moreover, I feel like there is something that was forcefully added to this world. What's going on here? A frown appeared on his face. Gojo couldn't help but slow down his speed as he tried to feel the changes that he had just felt. However, despite his strong perception of space, he still failed to discover anything. Still, this is to be expected. After all, the only reason he felt it the first time was because the realm hadn't stabilized yet. But, while Gojo couldn't feel it, this doesn't mean that others couldn't, as once the nightmare realm was born, 3 people in total instantly felt its presence and that they could enter it whenever they want. And those 3 people, as many guessed, are the Dream Path Walkers. It's just that this is no longer that important right now, as after slowing down for a while, Gojo finally decided to teleport to Shibuya to solve the problem there as quickly as possible so he could go back to Jujutsu High to understand what was happening. Swish! In an instant, Gojo suddenly emerged in front of the barrier and started observing it silently. What a pain! Chapter 202, The Beginning of the End. What a pain! Observing the barrier for a while, Gojo finally shook his head as he then turned his attention toward his surroundings. Hey? Where's everyone? Did they get evacuated so quickly? Realizing that there was no one present in the vicinity other than him and the Jujutsu High staff that had arrived a bit earlier than him, Gojo couldn't help but think about the prospect of forcefully shattering the veil. It would take me about a couple of minutes to shatter this veil. By then, some of the people within could at least run away, that way, the casualties will be reduced to a minimum. But, I am afraid that the moment I start attacking it, whoever placed it will sense it and then attack the people inside. I hate scenarios like this. I am really the strongest when fighting alone. Well, they should be aware of this too. After all, they've made such an effort to limit and prevent me from using my full power. Understanding that there was no other way around it, Gojo finally stepped into the veil, bumping into someone in the process. Sorry, said Gojo as he then proceeded to ignore the man he had just mistakenly bumped into and started looking around. It's just that as he observed the people around him, Gojo couldn't help but feel that something was wrong. Their souls, something feels wrong, it's just that I can't put my finger on it. Moreover, it's not just that. Everything here feels weird. Feeling that something was amiss with the situation, a frown appeared on Gojo's face as he continued to move towards the train station, walking above everyone's heads. Sorry. However, as he continued to do so, he also continued to observe the people around and below him unceasingly. It's just that other than his intuition warning him that something was amiss, he couldn't detect anything out of the ordinary using his other senses. This day is truly weird. First, it was Tenjin's barrier, and now, this. Well, alright then, I'll check it out later after dealing with the guys below. Understanding the situation clearly, Gojo, who was currently at the Shibuya shopping mall, immediately made his way to the basement floor where the cursed spirits and curse users were waiting for him. A lot of new faces. And all of them are special grades. But, do they really think that this is enough to face me? A disdainful look appearing on his face, Gojo scanned the special grade cursed spirits Ganesha and Hanami, before turning his attention to the curse users such as Choso and the new guy who Kenjaku brought out of nowhere. I don't know whether to call you dumb or courageous. Saying this, Gojo scanned his surroundings just to realize that all exits were closed off. Do they want to prevent me from running away? Interesting. Realizing their goal, Gojo couldn't help but shake his head as a wicked smile appeared on his face. Alright then, bring it on. However, meanwhile, just as Gojo was rushing towards the cursed spirits and curse users in front of him intending to tear their heads off, the rest of the Jujutsu sorcerers finally made it to Shibuya. This is different from the original timeline where they appeared a bit earlier than Gojo, as in the original, the latter didn't use teleportation as he wasn't in a rush to arrive at his destination. After all, in the original setting, there weren't other factors such as Tenjin's barrier that drove Gojo to take care of things faster. Moreover, that wasn't the only thing that was different from the original timeline, as there is also a bit of a change in the team compositions. However, this difference is just a minor, with Maki being replaced by Ultimate Mechamaru in the Zenin team. As for why Kokichi Muta, the controller of Mechamaru, is still alive even now? This is a result of the butterfly effect, as the death of Mahito made it so that it was impossible to make a binding vow to heal Kokichi Muta in exchange for him helping Kenjaku act as a spy. So, as a consequence, when attacking the school previously, Kenjaku had to come up with another way, which in turn saved Kokichi Muta. It's just that this wasn't that important right now, as these sorcerers weren't the only ones who had arrived outside of the curtain. After all, the moment Gojo entered it, Shijimo and Yago immediately exited it as planned and then found a high-rising building, waiting for their target. Where should we go now? Asked Shijimo, a naive smile that oozed maliciousness plastered on his face. There. I sense his presence there, the fingers are resonating. Responded Yago as he immediately rushed towards Aoyama Cemetery. Huh? Wait for me! Screamed Shijimo as he tried to keep up with Yago. It's just that unknown to the malicious duo, they weren't the only ones heading in that direction, as in the distance a certain young man of average height, disheveled black hair, and dark blue eyes could be seen making his way toward Shibuya, and as luck would have it, the direction he's coming from just happens to have this cemetery in its path. Running as quickly as he could, the young man who was wearing a white uniform jacket and had a sword on his back couldn't help but frown. Everything is unfolding exactly the same as what was written in the information that I got from that anonymous source. However, I don't know yet if everything is correct, but I still need to make it there as quickly as possible. I've left Rika in a secure location, so I don't have to worry about her safety, not to mention that she can share my power whenever she needs it, so there isn't much to worry about. Everyone at Jujutsu High helped me a lot when I needed it most, and now that they need me, I have to help. Please stay safe until I arrive. Chapter 203, Live Stream. All of this of course happened to be transpiring under Lorien's watchful eyes, who had just grabbed another bag of ships, teleporting it from one of the shops in Shibuya into his hands. It's most likely going to get destroyed by Sukuna soon, so I better eat it before that happens. Saving resources. Crunch. Crunch. Eating away at the inside of the bag, Lorien couldn't help but comment on the taste. Well, there are a lot of weird combinations in Japan, however, the taste is good. Shaking his head, a smile appeared on Lorien's face as he then turned his attention towards Yuta, who was heading in the direction of Aoyama Cemetery. He's finally here. Seeing the newcomer who haven't appeared in the original timeline, Lorien didn't seem that surprised. However, this is to be expected, after all, he is the one who sneakily sent information to Yuta to draw him into Shibuya. Kenjaku increased the number of cursed spirits and curse users, so I at least have to match him to keep things balanced. A wicked smile appearing on his face, Lorien couldn't help but imagine Kenjaku's face when his plan fails. Moreover, it seems that Kenjaku hasn't realized yet that Tenjin's barrier had collapsed, otherwise, I don't think he will even bother proceeding with this plan. After all, Tenjin's barrier is the core of his whole plan, without it, everything he prepared will become useless. As the grin on Lorien's face widened, he couldn't help but think about the best moment to send Maki and Yuki in. Yuki was killed by Kenjaku in the original timeline, so I should give her a chance for revenge. As for Maki, let's leave it for when Gojo gets sealed, if he does, that is. It's just what Lorien didn't know is that Kenjaku did indeed notice the disappearance of Tenjin's barrier even though he was still inside the veil converting Shibuya. After all, his accomplishments in this field are one of the highest in the world. It's just that right now, he is hidden in a location that's very close to the battlefield between Gojo and the curses, and he's afraid that if he were to make any move he'll immediately be noticed by Gojo. By then, not only will the plan fail, but his chances of running out of there alive will also be minimal. Moreover, with the battle already starting, there is no going back now, so it's better to deal with one of the biggest obstacles before going to see what happened with Tenjin. It's just that Lorien was unaware of what was going on inside Kenjaku's brain, not to mention that he was currently thinking about an entirely different subject, not paying much attention to the latter. This show is quite interesting, it would be a pity if I were to watch it alone. Thinking of this, a wicked smile appeared on Lorien's face as he thought about the Jujutsu sorcerers who had worked very hard to hide themselves for more than 1,000 years. Ha ha ha, oops. Well, I was going to broadcast the beginning of the new age anyways, so there is no harm in starting things a bit earlier. This way, the population of the world will at least have some time to adapt and understand what's going on. Thinking of this, Lorien rubbed his shin as he became more and more sure about his sudden whim. Alright then, it's decided. Time to take one from Mei Mei's book, without the gambling, that is. I don't like it much. Not hesitating any longer, Lorien immediately used his power, executing the mechanism he has long prepared with the dream trees as the basis. Buzz. In an instant, a wave of power washed over the world as the dream trees that were disguised as other objects suddenly bloomed with a mysterious golden brilliance that took everyone's attention. Swish! As the dream trees swayed in the wind, golden flowers silently materialized in the void as they then merged together, forming numerous large screens which broadcasted the events at Shibuya. Moreover, things didn't end there, as following the appearance of those large screens in all public areas around the world, be it rural or urban, everyone's phones and TVs worldwide seemed to glitch as they also started broadcasting the events. Not to mention those consumer-grade electronics, even the screen in military areas that were displaying different data were also forcefully taken over. This caused a wave of horror and panic to wash over all these military personnel from different nations as they can no longer access any of their weapon systems. Quickly! Find what's going on and fix it. Sir, we tried shutting down the power for some of the system but the broadcast continued as usual even without any energy source. This isn't scientific. Right now, the only things that were spared were the electronics used at hospitals and emergency centers which were intentionally spared by Lorien. After all, he didn't want to affect those in the middle of surgery or in need of help. Even the phones that were forcefully taken over still had their calling function operational just in case. It's just that while this free live streaming service is quite impressive as it not only broadcasted everything happening in Shibuya to all corners of the world without issues and also rendered all highly destructive weapons ineffective. But that wasn't the main consequence of the dream trees appearing publicly, as once they materialized, it was as if a veil was suddenly lifted from the world enabling everyone to see everything for what they truly are. No longer were cursed spirits and cursed energy hidden, everyone could see them with the naked eye without needing any help or possessing any powers. It's just that this wasn't something to be happy about as once this happened, a wave of panic washed over everyone causing a number of riots to unfold as people ran away for safety. What's is that? What in the? However, this did them no good as with people acting like this, their fears were instantly transformed into cursed energy, thereby pushing the cursed energy levels in the world to an all-time high. Frankly, if it weren't for the nightmare realm that Lorien established, this could indeed act as the precursor of the golden age of sorcerers as Kenjaku wished. However, sadly for Kenjaku, this is impossible now as once any negative energy was born, it got immediately absorbed by the nightmare realm, further strengthening it in the process. It's just that as people started to run away at the sight of any cursed spirits, Lorien finally acted, not wanting the audience to run away before the movie starts. Reality, calm down. Swish. In an instant, everyone felt a cold wave of energy wash over their bodies from head to toe. It was as if they drank a cold beverage on the hottest day in summer, causing a wave of relief to wash over them. No longer were they panicked, and no longer did they wish to run. Now, everyone can calmly watch the screens in front of them and watch history get created. However, this state of absolute calmness didn't last long as Lorien soon withdrew his power, not wanting to waste energy. It's just that this time before the audience could panic once more, a voice suddenly sounded from the screen, magically attracting everyone's attention. Hello everyone, how are you doing today? Well, I hope you are doing fine as you'll be witnessing history today. This should be enough to excite you, I suppose. Oh, I haven't introduced myself, right? Well, my name is Lorien, your host for today. If you have any questions and are confused by what's going on, please click on the icon at the bottom left of your screen for those watching from their phones or TVs, it includes everything you need to know. Saying this, Lorien, who was currently on the screen holding a microphone that he conjured for some reason, finally said, a brilliant smile appearing on his face. Alright then, as everyone is on the same page, let's not waste any time as we don't want to miss this fight. With that, the screens worldwide switched once more toward the battle between a white-haired man and a bunch of cursed spirits and curse users. Chapter 204, Gojo's Power-Up. Alright then, bring it on, said the silver-haired man on the screen, not knowing that his battle was being broadcasted to all corners of the world. However, even if he knew, he would most likely laugh it off and decide to give the opposition a more severe beating just to show off. Swish. Resolving his heart and ignoring the humans that were forcefully pushed into the metro tracks to both distract and limit him, Gojo disappeared from his position as he rushed at an incredible speed toward the largest of his 4 targets, the special grade, Asian Divine Curse, Ganesha. This is a very powerful cursed spirit that came under Kenjaku's control sometime after he gained dominion over Geto's body, using cursed spirit manipulation to manipulate it. And while this special grade curse got easily destroyed by Yuki in the original timeline, it just happens that its cursed technique obstacle removal can effectively counter Gojo's infinity. After all, this ability has the power to remove all obstacles and even target concepts, meaning, as long as it is an obstacle, it can bypass it. But, this is yet to be proven in the face of the strongest sorcerer alive who was already a small distance away from it. It's just that thankfully, we don't have to make any guesses about this as Gojo had already arrived in front of his target, punching forward with great strength while speaking mockingly. Let's start with you first. You are covering a large portion of my field of vision, so let me help you lose some weight. Swish. As the punch, which was covered with a layer of cursed energy, swept forward, Ganesha immediately reacted, trying to move one of its 4 hands in the direction of the attack as to defend itself. However, before its hand could move any substantial distance, Gojo's punch already reached its destination, landing squarely on the cursed spirit's stomach, causing the fat to ripple like waves as the cursed spirit was shot back into the wall behind it. Boom! By now, the other cursed spirit and curse users had already reacted as Choso immediately jumped away, creating some distance and opting for long-distance attacks to annoy and distract Gojo. However, the remaining two couldn't take such a role as someone has to fight the strongest sorcerer up close. Swish! Attacking from both directions, the weird-looking curse user called D2 and the cursed spirit Hanami punched Gojo, their bodies covered with domain amplification with the objective of negating Gojo's infinity. Seeing this, Gojo, who was about to pursue his target, had to stop and defend against the incoming attacks. Swish! Ducking under a blood arrow that was sent by Choso from a distance, Gojo raised both his hand, easily blocking Hanami's and D2's incoming attacks. Doing so, he then twisted his left hand as he forcefully held D2's forearm and spoke. Domain amplification, right? Are you the one who taught it to those cursed spirits? Saying this, Gojo paused for a moment before shaking his head, denying his own ideas. Well, I doubt it, however, it doesn't matter as you are going out first considering that you are quite the eyesore. You. However, before D2 could finish his phrase, Gojo yanked him forward, delivering a knee to his stomach while also tilting his head to the side, dodging Hanami's attack that came from the back. Then, not giving them time to react, Gojo forcefully moved his shoulder, hitting Hanami's still extended hand, causing the cursed spirit to lose stability as Gojo then turned his attention towards it. It's just that before he could attack it, a blood attack came once again from Choso as Ganesha, who was previously punched away, also came back to the battlefield, not wasting any time, immediately attacking Gojo. Boom! However, before the attack could land, Gojo jumped away, also evading Choso's attack in the process. Doing so, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes and glance around, analyzing everything that had just happened. The elephant is quite resistant to physical attacks, as for the other two, not so much. As for that death painting, if he continued being this annoying, I'll have to finish him second. Tisk, they really know how to choose a location. I can't use any of my abilities here, well, not the big ones at least. However, it seems that I can finally showcase the results of my recent training. Shaking his head, an arrogant smile appeared on Gojo's face as he then rushed once again toward the battlefield. Physical attacks are more than enough. Shouting this, Gojo disappeared from his position just to appear next to D2 in a feat of unrivaled speed, unthinkable for any other sorcerer. Swish! Punching forward once again, this time Gojo's fists were covered with a purplish hue that caused anyone to feel eerie just by looking at them. Boom! Crack! Blocking the attack using by placing both arms in front of him, a loud cracking noise echoed across the place, instantly waking up the stunned curse spirit who haven't reacted yet to Gojo's speed. It's just that before they could do anything to assist D2, the purple glow on Gojo's hand intensified as he delivered a second punch to the curse user. Minimum, purple. Swish! Boom! The instant the attack landed, the purple glow on Gojo's hand devoured D2, causing his upper body to disappear. Seeing this, Gojo turned slowly towards the remaining enemies, glancing at them one by one before speaking. I thought that this ability will only be used when I fight that guy once again, however, this could also count as a warm-up. Shaking his head, the smile on Gojo's face grew wider, appearing quite happy about the results of his few months of training. Alright then, who's next? He said, sending shivers down his enemies' spines. It's just that while Gojo was enjoying his time and abusing his opponent, all those who were watching the battle were feeling shocked, their emotions going through a roller coaster ride. After all, it hasn't even been a minute or so since the worldwide transformation occurred and someone has already died in this battle that is supposed to shape the future of the world. Is this the strongest sorcerer? According to the information presented, he is. So handsome. Suddenly spoke a girl, immediately breaking the solemn atmosphere that was shrouding the place. Chapter 205, Cemetery. However, not to mention the feelings of shock and awe that spread among the ordinary people, even Kenjaku and Lorien were surprised by what they had just seen. For Kenjaku, this surprise was mainly because he wasn't expecting Gojo to be this strong. As for Lorien, he was mostly interested in the new ability that Gojo had just showcased. I can't tell if he just gave his cursed energy purple like erasure characteristic or if he reduced purple's power and coated his fists with it. Well, the method doesn't matter much, only the results do. Tisk, I can only imagine how many times he had to regenerate his arm while practicing this. It seems that the beating I gave him last time motivated him quite a bit. Now I wonder what other abilities he has developed. Glancing at Gojo, who was about to rush towards his new target, Lorien couldn't help but shake his head as he turned his attention towards the Aoyama cemetery that was about to become another battlefield. Seeing this, Lorien waved his hand, causing another screen to appear next to the ones that were broadcasting Gojo's battle worldwide. Doing so, Lorien then used his power to cut off all communication to Shibuya from the outside world so as to not affect what was happening there. However, he still allowed communication within the barrier. Finishing all of this, Lorien then finally focused his attention on the cemetery and watched with glee and intent as he waited for the battle to commence. Gojo-sensei is going in alone. I get the reasoning, but there has to be something we could do. We can at least go as backup. Spoke Yuji, trying to convince the woman in front of him. Yeah, that's why we are heading to Shibuya, we'll get called as backup shorty. Responded Mei, predicting what was going to happen. Oh, are we? Replied Yuji, looking a bit clueless. However, just then, the kid who was standing next to Mei suddenly spoke, annoying a large percentage of those who were currently watching them. Sheesh. Making you go as a backup, who does Satoru Gojo think he is? You can't think of him as a normal guy. Responded Mei. You're not a normal lady either. Oh, you are so cute. You don't really think that. What you really love isn't family. You are more interested in work. Replied the brat, meekly. Heh, you're quite the smart one, I really love that about you. Ah. Watching all of this transpire, Yuji looked speechless, resisting the urge to face palm. This sentiment was also shared by a portion of those who were watching, as some cringed while others decided to turn their heads away, using the principle of, out of sight, out of mind. But, it is undeniable that there was also a portion of people who immediately transformed into mega simps the moment they saw Mei as they started spouting very weird stuff. Who's that? Anyone got her handle? She could step on me. Moreover, this wasn't all, as while most people were silent watching the degenerates take over the scene, some cheeky guys took out their guitars and started singing Sweet Home Alabama, causing laughter to echo across the previously divided scene. Ha 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 ha. It's just that while the viewers were having fun watching these interactions, the trio there had no idea about any of this. However, that wasn't the only thing they weren't aware of, as most importantly, they didn't realize that they were currently in grave danger. After all, just then, before any of them could react, the enemy that had been making his way toward the cemetery at max velocity had finally arrived. Swoosh! Crackle! As a huge blazing fireball fell from the sky like a meteorite, a heat wave immediately spread across the atmosphere, instantly raising the temperature by a couple of degrees. What? Quickly! Dodge! Boom! In an instant, and just as the trio were able to jump away in different directions so as to avoid getting injured, an explosion ensued from the point of impact, causing a large number of graves to be reduced to rubbles. Seeing this, the group that had just scattered in different directions immediately got ready for combat as they scanned the surrounding, trying to find whoever was behind the attack. However, it seems that they didn't have to search long for their target, as they soon discovered a figure standing in the center of the smoke cloud that was generated by the explosion. It's just that before they could completely lock into him, this figure disappeared just to appear in front of Yuji. Swish! Hoo! Boom! Landing a powerful punch on Yuji's stomach which sent the latter flying while spitting blood, Yago didn't waste any time as he turned his attention towards the remaining two. While I can't kill this brat as he is Sukin's vessel, you two aren't that important. Saying this, Yago immediately rushed towards Mei as he deemed her to be the stronger of the sorcerers present. Swish! Punching forward with his hand covered with flames, Yago didn't hold back as he wanted to get rid of the opponent as quickly as possible to prevent any unseen changes from occurring. It's just that while Yago wanted to end this swiftly, Mei didn't want to go down without a fight as she raised the axe in front of her to defend herself. Ui, get ready. Yeah. Ding. However, the moment they collided, she immediately realized that this was a trap, as while she blocked the physical attack, the flames that were surrounding Yago's hand suddenly erupted, engulfing her upper body before she could react. Sister. Finish his attack, Yago didn't bother following up with it as he then immediately turned his attention to the last nuisance around. Swish! Disappearing from his position, Yago suddenly appeared next to Ui as he then waved his hand, causing the latter to get swallowed by flames in a manner similar to how Nanami got killed in the original timeline. Humph, weakling! Waving his hand, causing his cloak to flutter, Yago then started walking slowly toward Yuji, who was finally able to stand up once again, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. However, just as he took a couple of steps, a shout came from behind him which caused him to stop in his tracks. Ui. Turning slowly, Yago looked at the severely injured Mei Mei, before raising his hand, getting ready to launch another attack. It's just that before he could do so, an annoying voice suddenly appeared stopping him from doing so. Ah, finally made it. You are really fast, Yago-san. Shijimo. You already dealt with everyone. Catching his breath, the blonde newcomer then immediately started looking around frantically just to find that every sorcerer there was either dead or injured. Seeing this, he couldn't help but feel flustered for a while before finally focusing his attention on Mei Mei as he then said to Yago. Leave her to me, she looks in pain, I have to put an end to her misery. Seeing this, the cursed spirit lowered his hand in response as he then spoke, his voice full of scorn. HMPHH. As long as you don't get in the way. Chapter 206, 1.23, 4, 5. Stating this, Yago then continued making his way toward Yuji, while at the same time, Shijimo also started walking slowly toward Mei Mei, pointing his weird weapon at her. Ah, so miserably, but you don't have to worry, it'll be over soon. He said, a twisted look manifesting on his face. Hearing this, Mei Mei's face couldn't help but darken as she tightened the grip on her weapon. Usually, in her peak condition, she wouldn't need more than a couple of strikes to end Shijimo's life. After all, compared to real first-grade sorcerers, the opponent is still considered very weak. However, it's a pity that the attack she received from Yago was serious enough to affect her movement, so she now has to deal with this annoying bug in a serious manner. Ah, this is bad. That volcano-like cursed spirit is a special grade, and a very strong one at that, so even if I were to kill the guy in front of me, it would be hard to run away. Thinking of this, Mei Mei couldn't help but glance at her younger brother who was lying on the ground, his upper body charred, and his vital state still unknown. Ui is down, I don't know if he is dead or not, and without his technique it would be hard to get away. Everything happened too quickly, we didn't have time to defend ourselves or use any of our abilities, otherwise, we wouldn't have fallen into such a bad situation. If it weren't for the sneak attack, I could have at least dragged things for a while and then used Ui's technique to flee. Moreover, things don't appear to be that simple. Realizing something was wrong, Mei Mei couldn't but think about what Yago had said before attacking them. His target seems to be Yuji, and more precisely Sukuna, doesn't he want to release him? Then, it seems that the attack on Jujutsu High was also their doing. Gritting her teeth, Mei Mei knew that there was no way out of this now, so, forcefully restoring her calm, she suppressed the pain she was feeling as she then rushed towards Shijimo waving her axe at him. All of this doesn't matter now, I first have to survive. Boom. Meanwhile, just as Mei Mei began her battle with Shijimo, Yago had already rushed toward Yuji with the objective of knocking him out. Just stay down, kid. I don't want to accidentally kill you. Saying this, Yago didn't hesitate for a moment as he punched forward, his fist covered with a layer of flames. Boom. Barely blocking the attack, Yuji tried to launch a counter-attack of his own just to get instantly overwhelmed by the opponent who didn't hesitate to increase the strength and speed of his attacks accordingly. Even though Yago didn't want to kill Yuji, destroying a limb or two wasn't an issue, as long as he stays alive, everything will be okay. So, with that in mind, Yago continued attacking relentlessly while all Yuji could do was barely defend himself. Swish. Boom. 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 Lasting for a couple of moments, their exchange soon came to a scratching halt as Yago landed a powerful blow on Yuji's chest, causing the latter to spit a mouthful of blood as a consequence. This was then followed by a punch to the chin and then finally an uppercut to finish the deal. Swish. Boom. His eyes turning white, Yuji's body finally reached its limit as he fell down to the ground completely unconscious. Usually, if he were fighting someone, even if it were a special grade curse, Yuji would have been able to at least protect himself for a while, such as in the case of Hanami, where even though he was clearly weaker than the opponent, he was still able to hold his own. However, when facing Yago, who was deemed by the Zenin team and Nanami in the original timeline to be leagues and bounds more powerful than the special grade cursed spirit Dagon, he really didn't stand a chance. After all, in the original timeline, Yago was able to easily blitz Nanami and Maki one after another, setting them both ablaze before they could react. Moreover, to cement his status as one of the more powerful special grade curses, even Sukuna, the king of curses, judged him to be one of the stronger opponents that he have faced over 1,000 years. So, it is no wonder that Yuji got easily beaten up by him. Moreover, This also proves that whatever Mei was previously thinking about being able to hold him down for a while if she wasn't sneak attacked was nothing but wishful thinking. It's just that all of this right now wasn't that important, as after knocking Yuji out, Yago didn't waste any time, immediately taking out Sukuna's fingers. However, the moment he did this, Yago's eyes immediately shrank in shock, fright and bewilderment as he looked at the fingers in front of him. Why are there extra fingers? Where did they come from? I'm very sure that there were only 5 when I took it from Ghetto, so when were they added? This is very fishy, something is wrong, are they fake? Is this a trap? Thinking of this, Yago couldn't help but hesitate about giving the fingers to Sukuna as he was afraid that there might be a trap. However, he also knew that there was no other way around it as things have already come this far. So, after hesitating for a couple more moments, Yago finally resolved himself and made his decision. I can feel that all of these fingers are real, and it is impossible to do anything to them. So, there might be someone else who wants Sukuna back and is helping us. Humph, it doesn't matter, this is actually good for us, as long as he's revived. Snorting lightly, Yago then sat down in front of Yuji and started taking the fingers one by one and forcefully feeding them to him. 1 finger. 2 fingers. 3 fingers. 4 fingers. 5 fingers. Chapter 207, Surprise. Meanwhile, just as Yago was forcefully feeding Yuji a large serving of the Colonel's chicken wings, the battle at Shibuya Metro Station already reached its climax. Turning our attention there, an exciting scene immediately came into view as Gojo could be seen moving around chasing after the cursed spirits who kept running for their lives. However, despite doing his best, he was still unable to quickly finish them off as the curses kept using the people around them as shields, which prevented Gojo from using too much power. This pissed off the already irritated Gojo, who as a reaction couldn't help but mock these annoying curses, trying to get on their nerves and force them to make mistakes. Why are you running? Didn't you want to bring me here? Here I am. You want to replace humanity, yet, you don't dare to face me. It's just that despite his mockery, none of the cursed spirits reacted as they just continued using their hit and run tactics, not bothering to even give him the smallest of responses. Seeing this, Gojo, who was chasing after Hanami, couldn't help but sneer as he then abruptly made a 180 degrees turn, striking the special grade cursed spirit Ganesha who was behind him before anyone could react. Swish! His fists getting covered with a purplish hue more intense than what he had previously used, Gojo disappeared from his position just to appear in front of Ganesha, punching it without any hesitation. However, it appears that even though this use of purple is quite powerful, it still has some disadvantages, as once Gojo increased the input on the technique, it even caused damage to himself. This could be seen from the skin on his fists and wrists that are being split apart and the meat and bones that were getting visibly torn apart and shredded. Boom! However, this didn't matter now as his right fist had already reached its target, landing squarely on the center of Ganesha's forehead. The moment this happened, the glow on Gojo's fist suddenly expanded, causing a mesmerizing purple light to flash across the space. This as a consequence caused the cursed spirit's upper half to silently disappear, thereby ending its accursed life. Swish! Finishing his attack, Gojo landed gracefully on the metro platform as he then looked at his injured fists that were dripping with blood, a frown appearing on his face. This technique still isn't perfect yet, it needs a lot of honing. Doing such a thing as adding imaginary mass to my fists and punching it forward at the moment of impact is very hard. Even now, I still don't have perfect control over it, moreover, I have to control the output to a minimum. Oh, let's leave this for later, I need to deal with the remaining curses as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Gojo immediately used his reverse curse technique to heal his hand, causing them to immediately get restored to their original state as if nothing had ever happened. Doing so, he then looked at his only 2 remaining targets and said mockingly, I don't know if you have noticed yet, but it's very clear that you are going to die here, so, stop running and make things easier for both of us, it'll be painless, I promise. Saying this, Gojo's eyes kept darting between the two of them as if he was thinking about who to attack first, which caused the bodies of the Hanami and Choso to tense up, getting ready to evade at any moment. However, before he could do anything, something unexpected suddenly happened. Hiss! Chirp! Hiss! As the sharp hissing noise caused by the stridulation of innumerable cockroaches echoed across the metro station, the origin of this noise soon followed as a black cloud emerged from the dark underground tunnel. Hiss! The moment this cloud of cockroaches appeared, they immediately swarmed towards the humans around, completely ignoring Gojo, who looked at all of this wide-eyed, shock written all over his face. What are those guys thinking? This doesn't make sense. The humans here are their only chance of survival, killing them is not to their advantage. Looking at the humans around getting swallowed and used as nutrition, which in turn increased the number of insects, Gojo was frozen in place, not knowing what to do. This. Quickly looking left and right, Gojo finally couldn't help but turn his head towards the tunnel from which these insects emerged. There, he immediately noticed the presence of a special grade cursed spirit who kept sending these cockroaches in their direction. However, sadly for Gojo, while this cursed spirit kept attacking unceasingly, it was smart enough not to get anywhere close to them as it stood very far away at the center of the tunnel. This distance allowed it to not be afraid of Gojo targeting it, which allowed it to attack the humans around unscrupulously. Damn it, I can't leave these curses here alone and go after it. If I do so, they would most likely also start attacking the people around. Gritting his teeth, Gojo was stuck between a rock and a hard place, not knowing what to do next. Do I have to? Meanwhile, just as this was transpiring, a silver-haired young man could be seen sitting on top of a high building about 5 kilometers away, watching all of this with gusto. Ha 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 ha, watching such scenes live really does have a different taste. However, as he watched all of this using his divine sense, Lorien couldn't help but notice the smug look that was slowly manifesting on Kenjaku's face. Looking at it, Lorien couldn't help but frown, feeling slightly uncomfortable. Hey, do you still think that everything is proceeding according to your plan? Thinking of this, a wicked look appeared on Lorien's face as he suddenly thought of an interesting ploy. Well, it's a pity that I have to change some of my plans, however, it's worth it. I was going to let things proceed naturally without intervening, as I wanted to see if I affected this world enough to change the outcome of this battle. However, now that I think of it, maybe I should spice things up a little. Ha 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 ha, I really want to see your face when that happens, it'll probably be very interesting. Laughing out loud, Lorien suddenly pointed his finger toward Gojo, sending a small amount of multicolored energy into his body without anyone noticing. Usually, Gojo might have been able to detect this as he has perfect control of his body energy. However, he was currently in the midst of launching his domain expansion as he slowly raised his fingers in front of him, forming a seal. Domain expansion, unlimited void. Chapter 208, Late. Meanwhile, just as Gojo was about to launch his domain expansion at the Shibuya metro station, something equally important was currently happening at Aoyama Cemetery. There, we could see Yago continuing to feed Yuji the fingers of the King of Curses without any delay or hesitation. Only a few left, according to what Geto said, forcing him to eat this many fingers at once will make him lose control. By then, Sukuna could completely take over this body using a binding vow. While thinking of this, Yago didn't stop his feeding action, instead, he accelerated it, trying to end this as quickly as possible. The 8th finger. The 9th fingers. The final finger. Ha ha ha, it's finally done. Successfully finishing his taste, a wide grin appeared on Yago as his heart was filled with excitement. However, just as he was about to lower his hand and take a step back, a silver light suddenly flashed in front of him, causing his eyes to widen in shock. Zingug. The moment he saw this light and heard this noise, Yago slowly lowered his head just to see his extended hand fall into the ground with a thud, causing some of the dust on the ground to scatter. Puff. This. What was that? However, before Yago could completely react and assess the situation, a powerful blow suddenly landed on his face, which sent him flying in the direction of Shijima and Mei Mei, who were still fighting. This was of course to Mei Mei's advantage, as whoever struck Yago had enough control and aim to make him hit Shijima in the back in the process of uncontrollably flying away. This opportunity was immediately grasped by Mei Mei, who after seeing her opponent lose balance instantly slashed forward with her axe with the objective of landing a finishing blow on the opponent. However, just as her attack was about to land, Shijima's falling trajectory miraculously changed, which enabled him to save his life. Realizing this, Mei Mei couldn't believe what she had just seen, as what happened just now was completely absurd. This doesn't make sense. How did he avoid it? Doesn't matter, I have to continue attacking, I don't believe that he can avoid it again. Figuring this out, Mei Mei didn't hesitate for a moment as she waved her axe once again, wanting to end Shijima's life. However, under her confused eyes, a similar situation transpired once again, enabling Shijima to save his life for the second time, which enabled Mei Mei to finally come to a conclusion. This must have something to do with his cursed technique, however, I don't believe he can continue doing this for long. And indeed it is as Mei Mei expected, as if she were to look at Shijima's face, she would immediately notice the disappearance of a large number of the black marks that were placed under his eyes. However, this didn't matter that much now as Mei Mei finally decided to activate her cursed technique Bird Strike, which enables her to send a powerful strike capable of exorcising a special grade with a single hit. I don't have to hold back anymore. Frankly, the only reason she haven't used this technique until now was because she knew that once she killed Shijima, what she had to face then was the incredibly powerful Yago who she didn't think she could survive against. So, instead of getting rid of the weak opponent in front of her just to die minutes later, she decided to bid her time and wait for an opportunity to use her technique to launch a sneak attack on Yago with the objective of killing him with one strike. However, looking at the place where Yago was just sent flying from, she knew that there was no need for this anymore. After all, she recognized the while-clothed indifferent young man standing there. Swish! Like a bullet, a crow suddenly flashed from a distance, landing squarely on Shijima's chest. Boom! The moment the bird made contact, it was soon evident that whatever miracles Shijima had left weren't enough to save him this time. After all, the big hole that appeared on his chest was enough to prove this. However, despite killing her opponent, no joy was apparent on Mei Mei's face as she turned her head toward where Yuta was currently standing, an ugly expression soon manifesting on her face. This expression was also shared by Yuta, who looked at the black marking that were slowly appearing all over Yuji's body. It seems that I was still a bit late. Meanwhile, returning to the Shibuya metro station, we could see Gojo raising his right hand and forming a seal in front of him. Buzz! The moment he did so, every cursed spirit and curse user there including Kenjaku froze in place, not expecting this to happen. Seriously? Does he no longer care about the people around? Looking desperately at Gojo, who was about to use his domain expansion, a sense of foreboding doom shrouded everyone present. However, sadly for them, despite knowing what was about to happen, they still couldn't change anything, as all they could do now was watch Gojo launch his domain. Domain expansion, Unlimited Void. Bzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz. The moment the domain was launched, it immediately shrouded the place, making it visually look as if the starry sky suddenly descended on this small space. However, none of the people present had time to consider this or appreciate the beautiful scene in front of them, as their brains were abruptly flooded by half a year's worth of information, causing them to freeze in place, unable to move or do anything. Doing this, Gojo didn't waste any time as he immediately rushed towards Kururushi, the cockroach-cursed spirit, as he knew that killing the insects around will do nothing without exorcising it first. Seeing this, Kururushi, who was too far away to get shrouded in the domain, immediately reacted, wanting to flee. However, sadly for it, the angered Gojo didn't hold anything back as he abruptly appeared next to it before this cursed spirit could even turn around and start fleeing. Swish! Boom! In an instant, and without the ability to even block a single attack, the cursed spirit was instantly obliterated as Gojo then turned around and rushed back towards the metro station, knowing that his other targets may wake up at any moment. Time to end this annoying game of cat and mouse. Chapter 209, Sealed? Unleashed? Swish! Rushing back towards the metro platform at maximum speed, it only took Gojo a second or so to reach his target destination. Tap! Landing softly on the metro platform, Gojo didn't waste any time as he immediately began scanning the place. Did the cockroaches released by that cursed spirit die alongside it, or can they still exist independently? Looking around, Gojo continued scanning the place, trying to find the answer to this question that would guide his future actions. However, as he did so, a frown soon appeared on his face as he discovered something annoying. Most of the cockroaches are dead, however, that's only for the ones that are born from the cursed technique. As for the remaining insects that are just being controlled or are born from human corpses, they are largely unaffected by the fall of that cursed spirit. Discovering this, Gojo couldn't help but glance at Hanami and Choso for a moment before gritting his teeth and rushing toward the remaining insects. Swish! Crunch! Crunch! Destroying all cockroaches in sight, Gojo didn't waste any more time as he turned his head towards his remaining two targets and rushed towards them. Time to end it. It's just that before he could reach them, he suddenly heard a thud nearby which attracted his attention. Thud! There, a couple of meters away from him, lay a square object that looked like a box that was covered by numerous paper talismans. Prison Realm, Gate Open. The moment the order was given, the cursed object immediately activated, transforming into a cycloptic curse that looked like it was being stretched from all four corners by the segmented parts of the opened box. Meeting the gaze of the huge eye that was situated at the center of the curse, Gojo immediately sensed danger, which made him want to flee from its side. What's this thing? It's just that before he could move, a familiar voice suddenly sounded nearby which made him stop in his tracks. Yo! Satoru. Hey. It's been a while. Looking over his shoulder, Gojo's eyes widened in shock as he looked at the person in front of him, someone who was supposed to be dead. It was his best friend, the friend who he had killed last year with his own hands. Is he fake? Is it some sort of transformation technique? Freezing in place, Gojo's brain parsed through all the possibilities thanks to his 6 eyes, however, after going through all of them, he finally came to a conclusion. He's real. The moment he realized this, all their memories together came flowing into his mind an entire 3 years of his life. Cly. It's just that the moment this happened, the requirement for activating the prison realm was instantly achieved, causing it to immediately shroud Gojo, sealing him in place. By now, with all of this happening, Gojo had already reacted, finally understanding their ploy. Tisk, they got me. Come on now Satoru, are you letting your brain wander during a fight? Who are you? Suguru Geto, of course, did you forget? How sad. Your body, and even cursed energy, my 6 eyes tell me that you are Suguru Geto, but my soul knows otherwise. Saying this, Gojo then exploded, shouting at the man in front of him. Hurry up and answer. Who the hell are you? Hearing this, Kenjaku smiled, opening the top of his head and said. Sheesh, how did you know? It's a cursed technique that allows me to hop between bodies by switching brains. Of course, it lets me use the innate curse techniques within the body as well. I coveted his cursed technique, curse manipulation, in these exact circumstances. You didn't have Shoko get rid of this body, did you? Thanks for that. Anyways. Don't worry, the seal will be removed soon enough, maybe in 1,000 years or so, after all, you are too strong for your own good. Ha 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 ha. Watching this, people worldwide instantly fell silent as a feeling of dread filled their hearts. After all, by now, they understood that Gojo was the good guy while the man in front of him was the bad guy. Moreover, there were also the events that were transpiring on the second screen that didn't look great either. All in all, everything was going south. However, just as everyone was feeling nervous, waiting for the next events, and just as Kenjaku was at his peak feeling a rush of joy and ecstasy because of the success of his plan, an anomaly occurred. Suddenly, from within Gojo's sealed body, a multicolored light slowly emerged, glowing brightly in the dim lighting. Buzz! The moment this appeared, the multicolored light immediately covered the prison realm that was shrouding Gojo, making it look like a huge glowing object. Then, under Kenjaku's shocked and terrified eyes, the multicolored light suddenly shook, causing a loud cracking noise to echo in the silent metro station. Crack! 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 Puff! Exploding into innumerable fragments, the prison realm was finally destroyed, thereby releasing Gojo, who was just about to get sealed within. Then, to make things worse for Kenjaku and the cursed spirits there, the multicolored light glowed once again with a bright light, this time covering the entire station. Buzz! With this happening, every human there silently disappeared as if they were never there in the first place, which even included the human corpses lying around. This is... Realizing what had just happened, Kenjaku finally reacted as he started sweating profusely, taking a couple of steps back as he looked at the now freed Gojo. Impossible. What happened just now? How did the prison realm break? Who did it? Damn it, it's over. However, different from everyone else who was feeling confused, the moment he saw the multicolored light, Gojo immediately recognized it, thereby realizing who was behind it. It's just that despite getting helped by him, Gojo didn't look happy at all. After all, he also saw how the humans around disappeared. So, gritting his teeth, Gojo finally shouted into the air, venting his anger while also unintentionally clarifying the situation to everyone else. Lorien. Hearing this name, Kenjaku couldn't help but remember the reports and information he got his hands on. So it's the other guy. Damn it. This is the worst case scenario. However, Kenjaku wasn't the only one who recognized it, as the people who were watching from all corners of the world immediately recalled the silver-haired man who launched this live broadcast, thereby causing uncontrollable changes to the world. However, this wasn't that important anymore as Gojo continued explaining the situation, which attracted everyone's attention. The humans around are just fakes, aren't they? You went through all this trouble to just watch a show. I was feeling uncomfortable using my new abilities on you when we have our match. After all, your plan will free this world and give it potential. But now, I don't care. Humph, quick, launch that plan as soon as possible, I don't want to accidentally kill you before you do it. Hearing this, Lorien, who was kilometers away, couldn't help but laugh out loud, his laughter miraculously traveling to the metro station and all the screens worldwide. Ha 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 ha. You are always calm, I just wanted to see you mad for once, I guess I succeeded this time. Moreover, the guy in front of you looked quite happy a couple of minutes ago, and it just happens that I have a hobby of slapping people down just as they reach their peak moment. Ha ha ha. Frankly, it was worth it. Hearing this, Gojo couldn't help but grit his teeth, wishing he could rush towards where Lorien was currently at and beat him down. Moreover, he wasn't alone in this dream, as Kenjiku right now wanted that more than anyone else. However, all of this was nothing but a fleeting thought, as after hearing what Lorien said, Gojo decided to ignore him for now, as he turned his attention to the man who stole his best friend's body, deciding to use him as a way to vent. Noticing this, Kenjiku, whose heart was filled with anger, immediately froze in place, feeling a chill down his spine as he couldn't help but swallow in fear while taking a couple of steps back. Can we talk this out? Meanwhile, just as Kenjiku was in a dire situation, Yuta and Mei weren't much better, as they were currently standing in front of the complete 20 fingers Sukuna, who was currently looking at them with a wicked look on his face. Ah, what do we have here? Chapter 210, should have aimed for the head. Meanwhile, just as this was transpiring, Lorien could be seen lying on the edge of a high-rising building 5 kilometers away from the scene, eating away at the large popcorn cup that was placed right in front of him millimeters from the edge. Taking small handfuls of popcorn and throwing them into his mouth, causing a few to fall down the edge, Lorien couldn't help but smile seeing Kenjiku's reaction. Ha ha ha, that should be enough to wipe that smug smile off your face. Perfect plan? There is no such thing as a perfect plan. Laughing happily, Lorien couldn't help but take another handful of popcorn and eat it, which also somehow caused his thoughts to wander. I've been eating a lot of junk food lately. Well, it doesn't matter much, I guess. After all, the great thing about practicing and becoming stronger is that it's impossible to gain fat, otherwise, I would have gained at least 20 kilos considering what I have been eating recently. Smiling at the thought, Lorien shook his head, throwing it aside, as he then turned his head back and asked. So, what do you think? Do you want to join in the fun? Hearing this question, Yuki, who had just arrived, and Maki, who had been summoned from Lorien's domain a while ago, fell silent as they watched the events unfold from the huge screen that Lorien had created to help them watch the show. Digesting what had just happened, Maki couldn't help but glance at the other screen that was broadcasting Yuta's battle, a hint of hesitation flashing in her eyes. It seems that Yuta is in danger, should I go help? However, as she thought of this, she couldn't help but glance at Lorien before gritting her teeth and suppressing this idea. This guy is probably up to something again. I've been with him for a long enough time to understand that he usually goes after arrogant people, and Sukuna appears to be one of his targets. So, instead of focusing here, I better go too. As she thought of her family, Maki's eyes suddenly sharpened, resolve filling her heart, as she then looked Lorien straight in the eyes and said. I want to go to the Zenin clan estate. I want to end this before you launch the dream path. Having been with him for a while, Maki had already understood Lorien's plan. Moreover, she also understood that once the dream path is launched, all Jujutsu sorcerers will be forcefully transformed into dream path walkers, which of course includes the Zenin clan. Understanding this, Maki wanted to end them before this happened, as she knew more than anyone else the potential of this path and how things could quickly go south if that were to happen. After all, God knows what kind of ability those annoying guys may awaken and what sort of reaction they'll have, so it's better to get rid of this hidden danger now and be done with it. As for going to help her companions and then go after the Zenin clan? She had already thought of it, but she knew that the Dream Path plan would be launched at the end of this battle, which means that she won't have time to go after her so-called family if she were to participate in this battle. Oh, want to go now? Don't you want to help your friends? They might die, you know. They'll be fine. Tisk, you are really no fun, but free labor is free labor, I guess. Whatever, I'll send you. Saying this, Lorien then waved his hand, using his power to send her close to where the Zenin clan was located, as he then turned his head towards Yuki. However, without needing him to speak, Yuki already understood what he wanted to say, as she just shook her hand and sat next to him, taking a small handful of popcorn from the cup that Lorien was eating from. Nat, everything appears to be under control, I'll just stay here. She said, throwing the popcorn into her mouth. You just want to be lazy. I never liked killing cursed spirits in the first place, why would I go now? You've got a point. Shaking his head, Lorien decided to ignore this lazy girlfriend of his and turned his attention towards Yuta. After all, there was the risk of sleeping on the couch tonight if he were to force her to go. Well, things are going to be interesting if they proceed as I have predicted. After all, I sense a familiar object on him. Smiling happily, Lorien ignored the main battle at Shibuya Metro Station, focusing his full attention on Aoyama Cemetery. There, things weren't looking great opposite to the overwhelming advantage that the human side had at Shibuya Metro Station. Right now, Sukuna, who had just taken control over Yuji's body, could be seen standing in front of Yuta with a wide and wicked smile plastered all over his face. Ha 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 ha, it's been a long time. Moreover, to make things worse, just as Sukuna was stretching, completely ignoring Yuta, who was frozen in front of him, a white-haired monk with chin-length white hair also appeared from the side. This immediately attracted everyone's attention, but the one first to react was Sukuna, who couldn't help but exclaim, "Yuram." Seeing that the situation was getting worse by the second, a tired look appeared on Yuta's face as he instinctively couldn't help but touch the ring on his finger. This is bad. Sukuna's power is overwhelming, it's the same as Gojo-sensei, not to mention winning, I'll have a hard time surviving. Moreover, reaching here, Yuta couldn't help but glance at the newcomer and at Yago, who had already reacted and recovered from his attack and was already coming this way. 3-on-1. I should have aimed for the head, at least, it would have been 2-on-1. However, just as Yuta was thinking about the best next course of action to take, Sukuna, who was talking to Yuram, finally decided to turn his attention towards him. Wait, Yuram, before talking about business, there is a bug that needs to be dealt with first. Chapter 211, Sealed Curse. Hearing this, Yuta immediately raised his sword in front of him, covering it and himself with cursed energy, getting ready for combat. Doing this, Yuta's expression slowly turned cold and indifferent as he spoke to Mei, who was some distance away, while still not taking his eyes off Sukuna. Senpai, you should go first and notify Gojo-sensei. Saying this, Yuta couldn't help but grit his teeth, hoping that the information he got about Gojo getting sealed was fake, otherwise, things would be very bad for every human in Japan and maybe even the world. However, hearing what Yuta said, Sukuna just looked at him in disdain and said mockingly, "Oh? An ant calling for help from a slightly bigger ant? Moreover, did I allow you to leave?" This caused Mei to immediately tense up while Yuta held his weapon tighter, which caused the smile on the face of the King of Curse to widen, appearing more and more sadistic. "Let's start with you before looking for that guy." Saying this, Sukuna slowly raised his right hand, preparing to flick it so as to send a slashing attack toward them. It's just that before he could launch his attack, Sukuna's eyes suddenly widened in shock as he then slowly lowered his head, looking at his own chest. Puff. Drib. Drib. There, a wound stretching across his chest from the shoulder to the waist slowly manifested into reality as if it had always been there. This, how is it? Cough. Spitting a mouthful of blood, Sukuna's face quickly turned ugly as he looked at his injury. I have already torn apart the parts of my soul surrounding the wounds to get rid of it, why is it back? Drib. Drib. Frankly, if Lorien were to hear this, he would most likely burst out laughing and mock Sukuna for his lack of knowledge. After all, if conceptual and law-based attacks were that simple to defend against and recover from, there wouldn't be such a large gap between those below and above the law stage. Conceptual and law attacks targets, as the name suggests, concepts, so, to heal from such attacks and defend against them, power of the same level is required unless there is a special case scenario such as overwhelming force. For example, Saitama's reversal of causality punch simply reached the power of law and concepts by pure brute force, it's just that sadly for Sukuna, he is nowhere near such power levels. Moreover, to make his situation worse, a multicolored light suddenly emerged from his body, completely covering him before he could react. Then, under everyone's shocked eyes, another body was forcefully extracted from Yuji's body. This new body was huge, had 4 hands, and the right portion of his face looked as if it was melted. However, thankfully for Sukuna, it appears that the bad series of events has finally reached their end, as after getting extracted from Yuji's body, the multicolored light actually proceeded to heal the injury on his chest that had magically transferred with him. It's just that while it did so, the multicolored light continued shrouding him, sealing him within it and making him unable to move or use any of his power. What's going on? Watching all of this transpire, Yuta, who was in a combat-ready state preparing to defend himself, couldn't help but freeze in place, a bewildered look appearing on his face. It seems that he got attacked and then forced out of Yuji's body, moreover, he doesn't appear to be able to move. As for who did it? Glancing at the multicolored light, Yuta instantly realized who was behind this, as he was very familiar with it, especially since the owner of this power was the one who helped him restore Rika. So it's him. This makes more sense now. Understanding the situation, Yuta didn't hesitate for a moment, deciding to take advantage of the chaos and finish off the biggest danger here. Swish! Rushing forward toward the sealed Sukuna, Yuta activated Rika's power, which greatly boosted his strength as he slashed forward with incredible speed and force. It's just that before he could reach his target, a white cloud of freezing mist suddenly appeared in his path, which quickly transformed into a large ice formation that blocked him from reaching Sukuna. Frost calm. However, despite seeing this blockade, Yuta didn't stop or slow down for a second as he slashed forward, his attack quickly breaking through the ice and reaching its target. After all, this was his most powerful slash. Swish! Boom! It's just to his great disappointment, once the attack touched the multicolored barrier, it slowly faded away, doing no damage to it or to Sukuna, who was sealed within. This caused Yuta's heart to sink as his brain started looking for an explanation. So this barrier makes him unable to do anything to others, but it also protects him from outside hard. All it does is essentially just bench him for a while. I really don't understand, what is Lorien even up to? It's just that while Yuta wanted to think more about the situation, he understood that this wasn't the time for that, as he instead turned his direction towards Yurim, who had just tried to block him. I have to end these two as quickly as possible, as I don't know when Sukuna will be released. Thankfully, while that barrier didn't allow me to kill him, it still gave me a chance. Swish! Quickly reaching his target, Yuta slashed at Yurim, trying to end the fight with one strike. It's just that before his attack could land, a barrier of ice blocked it, which enabled Yurim to avoid the attack while also creating a number of spiked ice that floated in the air for a moment before rushing toward Yuta, forcing him to avoid them. Boom! However, just as he jumped back, a volcano suddenly emerged from his right side, shooting a beam of concentrated flames in his direction, forcing him to dodge once again. This was also preceded by a cloud of freezing mist that roared towards him like a tsunami, blocking his last remaining path. They're cooperating seamlessly, this is gonna be annoying. Chapter 212, 2 on 2? It's just that despite thinking this, Yuta didn't actually look like he was currently in any actual danger, as even though he was being attacked from all directions, he still maintained his unhurt and indifferent expression. This is of course mainly because the attacks that he was currently receiving weren't powerful enough to cause him any fatal injuries, as he could have even tanked them directly. It's just that even though he could do that, it doesn't mean he has to, as that would put him in a more passive position. However, even though Yuta didn't have any interest in receiving those attacks, his enemies were very intent on sending more of them, as following Yuta's last dodging action, a shout suddenly sounded from behind, which was followed by a powerful wave of flames. Die sneaky brat. The one behind the attack was of course Yago, who is currently in a very angry state after he was previously sneak attacked by Yuta. Bzzzzzzzzzzz. Sensing the two opposition attacks that were shooting toward him from two directions, Yuta felt the preceding waves of heat and coldness, which created a weird uncomfortable atmosphere. Quickly judging the degree of danger of both attacks and the level of each of his opponents, Yuta suddenly rushed towards the wave of flames, taking the initiative to meet it head-on. Swish! Boom! Reinforcing his body with cursed energy, Yuta used his sword as the breaking point, instantly piercing through the attack and only receiving very minute injuries that immediately healed upon exiting the wave of flames thanks to his reverse curse technique. While I could have dealt with this better, I am currently on a time constraint and this is the faster way. I can't waste time with those guys, so I have to be a bit reckless. Swish! Upon exiting the flames, Yuta didn't waste any time as he coated his weapon with positive energy, intending to cause maximum damage as quickly as possible. Zingug! As his weapon pierced through the air, Yago looked in shock at Yuta, as he didn't expect the latter to make such an abrupt and dangerous move. However, while being slightly in shock, Yago's response didn't actually slow down as he coated his right hand with flames to defend against the incoming attack. Boom! The instant they collided, the loud noise of flesh hitting flesh echoed, which was then followed by the noise of blood splattering as Yago's hand was destroyed. Puff! Quickly reacting, Yago immediately jumped back as an ugly look appeared on his face. Reverse curse technique. Seeing this, Yuta instantly tried to follow up with another attack as he maintained the RCT covering his blade. It's just that before he could execute it, he suddenly felt something that caused him to immediately turn around and raise his weapon in front of him. Swish! Dingug! Looking at the white-haired opponent in front of him, Yuta instantly judged her to be a curse user, as she wasn't affected by his reverse curse technique. Moreover, feeling the power behind the attack, he also judged her to be a level stronger than Yago. It's just that right now, Yuta didn't have time to think about this as Yurum's attack wasn't only a physical one. Crackle. Feeling a wave of coldness wash over him, an ice formation suddenly appeared encasing Yuta within, which was then followed by sharp icicles forming above his head and shooting down toward him. Die, lowlife! However, just as the icicles were about to reach their target, the tattoo of serpent eyes and fangs suddenly emerged on Yuta's face. Destroy! Boom! In an instant, all the ice surrounding Yuta got shattered, while Yurim, who wasn't expecting such a reversal, got hit head-on by Yuta's cursed speech, causing blood to drip down from her ears, nose, and eyes. Noticing this, Yuta immediately decided to capitalize on this opportunity as he slashed forward, trying to land a hit on the retreating Yurim. Swish! Puff! Following the silver trail of a sword piercing the air, blood splattered on the floor as Yurim's forearm got cut off trying to defend against Yuta's attack. However, while still getting injured despite her retreat, this was actually worth it as her actions saved her from graver injuries while also buying her time. This time was of course precious, as by now, just as this quick exchange happened in the blink of an eye, Yago had already recovered and rushed back into the battlefield and launched a beam of flames toward Yuta, forcing him to turn around and block it. Swish! Boom! Deflecting the attack with his bare left hand, Yuta took advantage of their current positions as he redirected it towards Yurim, who was taking advantage of Yago's entry to use reverse curse technique to heal herself. It's just that seeing the attack that was coming her way, Yurim gritted her teeth as she was forced to stop the healing process so as to defend herself. Damn useless curse! Ice formation! Placing her hands on the ground, large icebergs immediately manifested in front of her, blocking the flame beam's path. Boom! The instant they collided, a loud boom quickly reverberated through the atmosphere as a shock wave manifested, causing the ground below them to shake as a consequence. Moreover, with the opposing natures of these two cursed techniques, a large amount of mist was immediately produced, which caused the place to fog up, making it difficult to see anything. Taking advantage of this, Yuta immediately rushed towards Yago, whom he deemed to be the easier target as his RCT was very effective against him. So, raising his sword in front of him, Yuta covered it once more with reverse cursed energy while also finally using his trump card. I never said that this was a 2v1, this is actually a 2v2. Hey! While not understanding what Yuta was talking about, Yago still maintained his vigilance as he got ready to receive the attack. Damn brat! Don't get cocky! Saying this, Yago suddenly used his power, abruptly manifesting a volcano head under Yuta, causing the latter to jump aside, which interrupted his attack. However, before Yago could breathe a sigh of relief, an ominous feeling suddenly shrouded him, forcing him to quickly turn his head to the side to face its source. Swish! Puff! Chapter 213, Revenge. Wide-eyed, Yago looked at his torn-off right arm and then at the curse that had unknowingly manifested itself right next to him. When did it appear? Though Yago trying to find a way out of this bad situation. However, he didn't have much time to think about this right now, as after biting his arm off and then spitting it out to the side, Rika didn't waste a moment as she immediately continued her attacks, mauling away at the still shocked Yago. Taking advantage of this, Yuta rushed again toward Yago, wanting to finish him off once and for all. It's just that similar to what happened previously in this battle, a nuisance that took the form of Yurim appeared once again, interrupting Yuta before he could reach his target. Right now, Yurim had already healed most of the injuries that she had received thanks to her RCT and rushed forward to block Yuta. Seeing this, Yuta knew that he couldn't continue his attack, so he immediately took the initiative to change direction and rush toward Yurim while Yago was being pestered by Rika. I only have less than 5 minutes to finish this battle, otherwise, things may turn bad. Crash! Boom! Clashing once again, a wave of coldness shrouded the area, which was then forcefully dispersed by Yuta's overwhelming cursed energy. Doing this, Yuta couldn't help but note the current distance between all four of them before finally making a decision. One of their cursed techniques is attack-focused while the other is control-focused. They make for a great tag team despite their opposing powers. Moreover, the wild-haired one seems to be holding back some tricks. It seems that I can't give them the opportunity to fully use their cards. Thinking of this, Yuta was even more sure of his decision, as he knew that he couldn't finish this woman off in such a short period of time. It's better to get rid of cursed technique altogether, after all. Glancing to a hidden corner some distance away from the battlefield, a smile appeared on Yuta's face. I'm not alone. Swish! Boom! Following another clash, Yuta swiftly took advantage of the momentum created by it to make some distance between him and his opponent, which made him land in between her and Yago. Puff! Landing gracefully on the cracked concrete ground, Yuta suddenly raised his right hand in front of him, making a seal which forced both Yago and Urim to instantly react and make seals of their own. Domain Expansion, X3. Buzz! In an instant, 3 opposing domains overlapped in this open space, forming a large black ball-shaped barrier that floated silently in the air. However, this barrier didn't last long, as moments after the domain clash, it started cracking on its own, collapsing bit by bit into black glass-like fragments. This was caused by many factors such as the opposing natures of Urim's and Yago's domains, which made them completely incompatible, and the small push that Yuta gave to accelerate its collapse, as this was his plan all along. After all, a 3-way domain that's composed of many parameters and rules is very hard to maintain normally, not to mention such a situation. Boom! Following its collapse, 4 figures fell from the barrier, with Yuta being next to Rika while Urim and Yago were next to each other. It's just that before they could reach the ground, Yuta suddenly shouted at the top of his lung. Do it now! Huhh! Quickly reacting, both Urim and Yago, whose curse techniques are still burned out, immediately became vigilant. However, it was still too late, as both of them were currently in the air, unable to make any real adjustments. Swish! Puff! In an instant, a black shadow suddenly shot through the air, instantly piercing through Yago's back, exorcising him in the process. Bird strike! Seeing this, Urim, who had just landed, immediately looked towards the source of the attack just to see a white-haired woman looking at them from the distance. That's revenge for Ui. Good job, senpai! Shouted Yuta as he didn't waste any time and rushed toward his opponent alongside Rika. Right now, the tables were turned, as it was Urim who now had to face a 1v2 or even 1v3 if Mei decided to launch another sneak attack. Moreover, she was currently unable to use her cursed technique as it was still burned out, so she still had to use the good old hand-to-hand combat. It's just that in a 1v2 against Yuta and Rika, Urim was immediately suppressed as she got attacked from both directions. Puff! Puff! A punch to the face, another to the stomach, and an uppercut. It seems that Yuta had no interest in holding back against Urim, who looked like a woman, a true feminist indeed. This was even more the case for Rika, who kept clawing at Urim, causing large wounds to appear and blood to splatter. All Urim could do now was defend her head to the best of her ability and use RCT to recover her injuries. Damn it! I have to recover my technique fast! Screaming, Urim internally gritting her teeth as she looked at Yuta, wishing she could tear her heart out. It's just that this hope soon came to an abrupt end, as it seems that someone had recovered his technique quicker than her. Curse speech, die! Puff! Spitting a mouthful of blood as a consequence, Urim's pupils shrank in fright as she looked at Yuta's, whose hand was suddenly covered in flames. When did he? Disaster flames! Boom! Following a clean full-powered hit to the face, Urim's head was lit in flames as she then fell down to the ground, her state unknown. However, Yuta was intent on determining her state as he took his sword, delivering another hit to her neck, completely separating her head from her body. Huff! Finally over. Waving his sword to the side, causing a trail of blood to appear, Yuta released the complete manifestation on Rika as he quickly rushed toward Mei's location, where the unconscious Yuji and the burned Ui could be seen lying next to her feet. Seeing this, he swiftly sat next to both of them and began using his reverse curse technique. However, after a couple of moments, a powerless look appeared on his face as he looked at Mei and shook his head helplessly before finally standing up. Take them and leave her as quickly as possible. What about you? I still have work to do. Hearing this, Mei didn't continue asking as she nodded before taking the two next to her and leaving. Seeing this, a helpless yet resolute look appeared on Yuta's face as he turned his attention toward Sukuna. I have to deal with him, otherwise, the amount of casualties he would cause is immeasurable. It's just that despite knowing what needs to be done, Yuta also knew that he wasn't capable of achieving such a feat. However, this doesn't mean that all hope was lost, as Yuta suddenly placed his hand inside his clothes before taking out a familiar intricately edged glass object. I hope that this will be enough. Note: you can read the next chapter 214 for free on Patreon, go check it out there. Author Patreon com/author Husem. Support me there and get to read up to 15 advanced chapters or more. You can also find me now by simply typing Husem. New novel. Patreon, exclusive, JJK, Life and Death was launched. Comment. 3 comment. Vote. Chapter 214, Increase in Population. Meanwhile, watching the battle slowly unfold from the big screens worldwide, all those who were watching couldn't help but feel excited seeing Yuta's victory, as some people even popped out some champagne to celebrate. Yes. Good YouTube. Well done. However, seeing his next move, all those watching couldn't help but feel puzzled, not knowing why he didn't take advantage of the fact that Sukuna was currently frozen to run away. Moreover, this confusion grew stronger seeing him suddenly take out a goldish glass object and crash it in his hands, apparently absorbing whatever was within it. What did he do just now? No idea. Could it be some performance-enhancing drug for sorcerers? Could be. It's just that while the ignorant civilians didn't know what it was, Lorien immediately recognized it, which confirmed the feeling he had before. I knew that I sensed its presence on him, but I didn't expect him to use it now. Ha, now this is getting more and more interesting. Tisk, 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 I really wonder what kind of ability he will awaken. It seems that Sukuna might actually get beaten up by him, considering how broken Yuta's current ability is, not to mention after it gets improved and his energy transformed. Well, frankly, the stronger the better. After all, whatever ability Yuta awakens will eventually get fed back to me. This fact was also noticed by Yuki, who also recognized the object Yuta had just crushed. Hey! It seems that Sukuna might be in trouble. I also think so, however, we can't rule him out just yet, as we don't know if the increase that Yuta will get from switching power systems will be enough to overwhelm Sukuna or if it will only make them equal. Hearing this, Yuki nodded, agreeing with Lorien's conclusion, as she then turned her attention back towards the battlefield, waiting in anticipation for the new battle to unfold. Seeing this, Lorien smiled as he also looked in Yuta's direction. However, different from Yuki and all the other people watching, Lorien's attention was mostly focused on the Nightmare Realm side that was mirroring the real world. There, Lorien noticed some nightmare spirits being born in the same location that Urim and Yago died in. Moreover, these nightmare spirits were quite powerful, being roughly equal to the special grade level of the cursed energy system at the moment of their birth. Additionally, they also held the same attributes as the Yago and Urim who had just died, being ice and flames. This is mainly because, since the creation of the Nightmare Realm, Lorien made it so that whenever a cursed spirit or curse user is killed, their origin and essence will be absorbed by the Nightmare Realm, thereby creating nightmare spirits of the same attributes. By doing so, the Nightmare Realm will quickly get populated and no negative energy will be wasted in the process. This is better than letting them die completely and then waiting for the fear of a certain aspect or element to accumulate enough to allow a new nightmare spirit to be born. The advantage of such an approach is very evident, as even now, not long after the Nightmare Realm was created, Lorien could sense the ever-increasing number of nightmare spirits being born, either by getting absorbed before they were completely born in the real world or assimilated after dying. Well, to be honest, this doesn't matter much. After all, I'll forcefully throw them inside the Nightmare Realm later on once I officially launch the Dream Path, but, in the meantime, it is still a great way for transitioning from one power system to another. Moreover, getting a continuous stream of luck still feels great, so there's that as well. Shaking his head, Lorien finally turned his attention away from the Nightmare Realm, as there wasn't much to see there. After all, even though these nightmare spirits looked very similar to their previous counterparts, they held no recollection of their past lives, effectively starting new ones. Well, it seems that Kenjaku isn't doing that good now. Turning his attention to the Shibuya metro station, Lorien's divine sense shrouded the battlefield, allowing him to watch everything in great detail. Damn it! Run! Looking at Hanami and Choso, who immediately turned tail trying to make a run for it before Gojo decides to focus on them, Lorien couldn't help but smile amusedly at their useless attempt. Do they really think that they can get away that easily? Summoning evil spirits is quite easy, but getting rid of them is very difficult. This is also true for Gojo. Now that you brought him here, it's very hard to make him go away. And indeed, it is as Lorien expected, as the moment Gojo saw the two trying to run away, he only glanced at them for a moment before launching a maximum output blue in their direction. You rats already had your fun, so you should stop jumping around, said Gojo. Maximum cursed energy output, blue. Bzzzzz. The moment Gojo used this technique, a large blue-colored ball instantly shot in their direction while releasing an incredibly powerful gravitational attraction. This force was so powerful that no matter how much they tried, neither Hanami nor Choso were able to take another step forward despite desperately using all their power. What is that? Moreover, to their utter despair, they slowly started sliding towards it, leaving a large trail in the concrete as they tried to resist its power. However, all of this was eventually for nothing. After all, despite all their efforts, they soon reached the center of the gravitational force that acted like a mini black hole. Puff. AGHH. X2. In an instant, as soon as the two got absorbed by the ball, they were impacted by the unbelievably strong force within, immediately crushing them alongside all the rubles that got inadvertently absorbed with them. Bzzzzz. Achieving his goal, Gojo didn't waste any time as he immediately released the technique, his eyes still fully focused on Kenjaku, who was still thinking of ways to get away from this place. So, do you have anything to say? And choose your words carefully, after all, they will be your last. Chapter 215, Kenjaku vs Gojo. Meanwhile, watching this from afar, Lorien didn't look that surprised after seeing how Gojo easily got rid of both Hanami and Choso in one strike. After all, the power gap between the two parties was quite big. Frankly, the only reason they lived for so long was mainly because Gojo was previously limited by the presence of other humans around him, which made him suppress his power to a minimum. But now that such limits are out of the window, the huge power gap immediately became apparent. Tisk, I really liked Choso's characters in the original timeline, it's a pity seeing him die like this. Shaking his head, Lorien actually remained somewhat indifferent despite seeing the MC's nominal brother and a favorite character of his die. After all, to Lorien, the original timeline was nothing more than an entertaining and very useful story, while real life is an entirely different matter. Not to mention Choso being the MC's brother, even if he were the MC himself, Lorien wouldn't care much about him. Moreover, everyone has their choices in life and they have to take responsibility for their actions. Additionally, if Lorien were to save him, that would be unfair to all the normal and innocent people who died in his hands. Well, but I really like his change later on in the story. Ugh, what will it be, fairness or my own interest? Alright, how about something in between? Thinking about it, and feeling a slight hint of reluctance, Lorien couldn't help but turn his attention toward the nightmare realm where two new nightmare spirits appeared following the death of Choso and Hanami. Alright then, it's decided. I'll help you keep your past memories, however, that's it. There won't be any more preferential treatment. If he were to die in the hand of a dream path walker in the future and becomes nourishment for said path taker, then so be it. Moreover, the nightmare realm is technically a prison, so instead of giving him the death penalty, all I did was change it to a life sentence. Making his decision, Lorien immediately applied his thoughts to reality, allowing the newborn blood nightmare spirit, which was supposed to be a blank sheet of paper, to restore its past memory. It seems that Gojo wants to torture Kenjaku slowly. Dealing with Choso's matter and satisfying his own interests, Lorien turned his attention back to Gojo and Kenjaku, his eyes full of curiosity. I really wonder how Gojo used the information that I previously gave him. Did he only use it to create the new minimum release, or did he develop other interesting things? Maybe he even modified his own domain into an open one, who knows? Swish! Boom! Looking at the center of the battlefield, Lorien watched as Gojo rushed toward Kenjaku to begin a bout of hand-to-hand combat. Clash! Clash! Boom! In an instant, the two parties clashed numerous times at an incredible speed, each showing their own skills. However, while Kenjaku had a large advantage in terms of experience considering his age, it appears that this was quite useless in this battle, as soon after they started their clash, Kenjaku was visibly suppressed by Gojo, who kept attacking relentlessly. Punch after punch, attack after attack, the advantage of having the six eyes was clearly displayed for all to see. Ack! Suddenly getting punched in the face, Kenjaku gritted his teeth as he used his reverse curse technique to heal his broken nose. What's going on with his punches? They have a weird power shrouding them that attracts the target before impact and pushes it afterward. It increases the power behind each punch while being very disorienting. Suppressing the weird feeling that he was currently experiencing, Kenjaku conjured a bloody blob of energy in his hand as he began utilizing his wide arsenal of cursed techniques which he gathered in the past 1,000 years. Blood manipulation. Swish! In an instant, a red beam composed of blood instantly pierced through the air at an unbelievable speed, heading toward Gojo, who just looked at this attack indifferently. Bzzz. Landing on his infinity, the attack, as everyone expected, froze in place before slowly disappearing into nothingness after losing its energy. Seeing this, Gojo looked at Kenjaku in confusion and a hint of mockery before finally saying, "Is that all you got? I expected more from an expired brain of unknown age." It's just that hearing this mockery, Kenjiku remained indifferent as he just continued attacking with different curse techniques as he also silently released the veil he had been maintaining to cover Shibuya. After all, the only reason that barrier was there in the first place was to keep the people in Shibuya from running away and keeping others from interfering. However now, Kenjiku wants the opposite of this, as it would be perfect if someone decides to join this battlefield. That way, Gojo will once more be limited and he'll have an opportunity to run away. Gojo works best when he's alone, and this place is now basically a perfect battlefield for him. I have to attract people here. However, just as he thought of this, both Gojo and Kenjiku's eyes suddenly widened as their attention was immediately attracted toward a certain direction. This presence, it's Sukuna. And based on the cursed energy levels, it seems that he is at full power now. What happened to Yuji and the others? With the barrier being released, Gojo was finally able to sense the outside world, which enabled him to instantly detect Sukuna's presence. Moreover, he also felt a familiar aura present in that direction. No question about it, this is Yuta. Realizing this, Gojo immediately tensed up as he wanted to rush there to check on his students. However, it's a pity that he still had business to do, as he couldn't just let Kenjiku go free, as that would be very dangerous. It's just that while Gojo was analyzing what was happening, Kenjiku was one step ahead of him as he suddenly spoke, a smile finally appearing on his face. Your students are there, right? They won't survive long if you don't go now. I still have to deal with you first. Sneered Gojo in response, aware of what Kenjiku was implying. Is trading my life for theirs worth it? Replied Kenjiku while still maintaining his unsettling smile. It's just that while Kenjiku was still trying to speak his way out of this situation, Gojo was having none of it as he suddenly raised his right hand in front of him, forming a seal. There is no need for that. I just have to deal with you quickly. However, it's a pity that I couldn't enjoy torturing you. Domain Expansion. Chapter 216, Open Domain. Domain Expansion, Unlimited Void. Seeing Gojo expand his domain, Kenjiku, who previously had a weary smile on his face, suddenly laughed happily as if succeeding in achieving some sort of ploy. Great! He finally used his domain. I can now use the fact that open barrier type domains can easily counter and destroy the closed barrier type domains by attacking their barriers from the outside. Based on this fact, I can quickly destroy Gojo's domain without having to face it head and then quickly run away the moment that happens. This way, he won't be able to use his technique for a short period of time, which will enable me to make a run for it. This weakness in closed domains and the difference between them is something he probably doesn't know of and won't expect, so won't be prepared for it. Thinking of this, Kenjiku felt slightly relieved knowing that he at least had a chance to run away now. As for using this opportunity to try and kill Gojo while his CT is burned out, that's something Kenjiku didn't even dare to think of, not to mention try and do. So, making his decision, Kenjiku also made a seal in front of him using both hands so as to use his domain expansion, wanting to expand it before he actually gets affected by Gojo's unlimited void. Domain Expansion, Womb Profusion. It's just that the moment he launched his domain, the smile on Kenjiku's face slowly disappeared as he noticed something off. Where is the barrier? Bzzzzz. However, before he could understand what was happening, a dark veil suddenly shrouded everything within a few hundred meters. This dark shroud looked like it was composed of a starry sky where the blankness and eeriness of space together with the brilliance and sheen of the stars were present. It looked as if the stars in the sky were dragged down into the earth, replacing the previous starless night. Moreover, if people were to look around, they'd instantly notice dark black hole-like objects floating within the domain. Seeing this, Kenjiku, who had also just launched his domain, which took the form of a giant pillar made up of cursed spirits, felt his heart sink down in dread and uncertainty. This is an open barrier type domain. How does he know how to use it? Moreover, where is the center and core of the domain? His face quickly turning ugly, Kenjiku looked around trying to find the core of the domain to get a better understanding of the situation. However, even after looking all around, he still wasn't able to find anything. This was until his eyes finally fell on Gojo. Could it be? Did he use himself as the center of the domain? How is that possible? Thinking of this, Kenjiku's eyes shrank fiercely as he focused all his attention on Gojo, trying to decipher the mystery. However, even with his wisdom and 1,000 years of experience, he still couldn't think of the method that Gojo used to achieve this. It's just that what Kenjiku didn't account for was Lorien, who provided in-depth information and data about open domains and the different methods of constructing them to Gojo, who after receiving this information quickly decided to use himself as the center of the open domain. By doing this, Gojo can now choose between using either the open barrier type or closed barrier type domains depending on the situation. Moreover, he can also easily switch between them by forcefully modifying the settings and parameters of the domain on the fly. Frankly, without Lorien's detailed information and data, even if Gojo were able to achieve such a feat, it would have taken him a few years to attain it, not to mention a few months. However, neither Gojo nor Kenjaku really cared about this right now. After all, by the time the latter finished his observation, their domains had already begun clashing. Swish! Bzzzzzzz. In an instant, the starry sky formed by Gojo's domain instantly swept toward Kenjaku in an indomitable manner, constantly suppressing the latter's domain, slowly destroying it bit by bit. Sensing this, droplets of sweat appeared on Kenjaku's forehead as he clenched his teeth while constantly trying to keep his domain from getting overridden, as he knew that when this happens, that would be the moment he dies. It can't end here. I'm so close to achieving the long-awaited evolution. It's just that despite whatever dreams or plans Kenjaku had, it all became nothing right now as he finally couldn't hold on. Crack! Crack! As the pillar formed by cursed spirits behind Kenjaku cracked like glass, Gojo's domain finally took effect, pushing innumerable quantities of information into Kenjaku's brain. This caused the 1,000-year-old sorcerer to freeze in place, taking the full impact of this unavoidable attack. Seeing this, a cruel smile appeared on Gojo's face as he flashed toward Kenjaku at maximum speed, immediately launching a series of attacks. Swish! Puff! 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 Drib! In an instant and under Kenjaku's desperate gaze, his two arms were instantly destroyed, causing a cloud of blood to appear in their place. However, this was far from over, and Gojo then focused his attacks on Kenjaku's head so as to finish him once and for all. It's over. Maximum cursed energy output, blue. Bzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz ball swiftly appeared right in front of Kenjaku's face, immediately attracting him toward it as it ate away at his body, reducing it into nothing. Seeing this, Gojo took a step back and silently looked at the remains of his best friend as it got destroyed by his own hands. I hate to do this, but it's necessary, I don't want to see anyone else desecrate your body once again. Sigh. If you only stayed in Jujutsu High for a bit longer, everything might have been different. Giving off a long sigh, Gojo released more energy toward the blue orb formed by his cursed technique as to accelerate the destruction of the remains. Doing this, he also removed his domain and turned his attention toward the direction of Aoyama Cemetery as a frown appeared on his face. What's going on there? It's too silent. Moreover, Yuda's cursed energy seems to be disappearing at an incredible speed, however, weirdly, he doesn't appear to be in any danger. Wait, could it be? Suddenly thinking of something, Gojo decided not to go toward the cemetery for now as he instead chose to look in a random direction and shout out loud. Lorien! You've been watching for so long, aren't you going to come out and join in the fun? Chapter 217, Pre-Fight. Hearing this call to the unknown, all the people who were currently watching the live broadcast suddenly fell silent. Moments ago, they were still shocked by what they had just seen watching the battle between Kenjaku and Gojo and the real-life visual effects they had just witnessed. However, hearing that the mastermind behind all of this was finally going to appear, they fell silent for a moment before exploding into even higher levels of excitement. Is he finally going to appear? Hey? Who will appear? Weren't you paying attention? It's the guy behind all of this. Ah. Meanwhile, completely indifferent to what everyone was thinking, Lorien could be seen still sitting in the same position as he watched everything play out. However, hearing Gojo's call, Lorien couldn't help but feel a bit surprised as he didn't expect to get called out like this. What is this guy up to? Does he want to start our battle right now? Doesn't he want to go and help his student? Scratching his chin, Lorien turned his head toward Yuki just to see the same confused look appear on her face which caused him to chuckle in reaction. Well, I don't know what he's currently thinking, however, he is indeed correct, it's time for me to join in. Thinking of this, a joyful look appeared on Lorien's face as his appearance also meant that the launch of the dream path was ever so close. It's just that before showing up, he still had something else to deal with. Kenjaku. As annoying as that guy is, he's really smart and useful. Honestly, it would be a real pity to let him die just like that. Looking toward the Nightmare Realm side of the Shibuya metro station for a couple of moments, Lorien finally decided to use his power to help restore Kenjaku's memory. D/R, Memory Restoration. Bzzz. Using his power, a mysterious wave of energy instantly washed over the newly born nightmare spirit, helping it restore its past memory. Alright, this should be enough, I hope that he doesn't let me down. Smiling lightly, Lorien couldn't help but think expectantly about the ploys and weird stuff that Kenjaku would come up with after becoming a nightmare creature. Frankly, if Kenjaku miraculously decides to settle down somewhere in the nightmare realm and call it quits, then the restoration of his memory would be a real waste. After all, the only reason Lorien helped him was to make him act as a tester for the nightmare realm to see if there are any loopholes or ways to exploit the existent rules. Moreover, he could also help develop the nightmare side of the dream power system that Lorien didn't care much about, as Kenjaku already has a lot of experience in doing such things. This guy's 1,000 years of experience is too precious to just let it disappear, otherwise, I would have just let this guy die. Well, whatever, it's the old rules I guess, life imprisonment instead of a death sentence. Ha 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 ha, I think that even if they knew about this, they would thank me. Frankly, this is very different from the reason why Lorien gave Choso his memories back, which is a completely personal thing. Meanwhile, the restoration of Kenjaku's memory has a clear purpose and is a completely rational decision. Find and exploit all available resources. Even an enemy might be useful in some situations. Thinking of this, Lorien's eyes shone brightly with wisdom as he then finally turned his attention towards Gojo, who was still waiting for his appearance. It's time to go. Crack. Crack. Sitting up, a series of cracking noises echoed as Lorien stretched his arms and legs after sitting for such a long period of time. Are you coming? Suddenly said Lorien, turning his head toward Yuki, who still continued to sit in place lazily. Nah, I'm good. Hearing this, Lorien just shook his head as he had already expected such an answer. Alright then, enjoy the show. Swish. Meanwhile, at the Shibuya metro station, Gojo could be seen standing in place, waiting for Lorien to appear. It's just that after waiting for a minute or so, he couldn't help but feel slightly impatient, not knowing if Lorien would even come out. This is weird, with that guy's personality, he should have already come out. Should I go help Yuta then? However, just as Gojo turned his head toward the direction of the Aoyama cemetery, a voice suddenly sounded from behind, causing him to smile lightly. Worried about your student? Maybe, so do you care to elaborate? What are you even up to? A few things, but if you are worried about Yuta's situation then you don't have to, he's currently switching paths. Meanwhile, Sukuna is sealed. Sealed? For how long? Until Yuta finishes his transformation. Hearing this, Gojo's eyes couldn't help but narrow slightly as he looked at the silver-haired man in front of him, who had a mysterious look plastered on his face. It seems that I don't have to worry about him, thought Gojo, his nerves finally relaxing as he then switched his attention back to Lorien. So that's how it is, you are showcasing the new path, aren't you? Ha ha ha, it's clear, isn't it? Yes, it is. The strongest cursed spirit dying at the hands of a new dream path taker, great publicity. Indeed, but you know what's even better publicity? The strongest sorcerer losing to the dream path maker. Hearing this, a look of disdain appeared on Gojo's face as he responded to Lorien's provocation. Another challenger? Well, considering our acquaintance, I recommend that you change your plan, otherwise, you might not be able to start your plan. Nah, I like it the way it currently is. Try it then, said Gojo, his curse energy flaring up. However, seeing this, Lorien still remained calm while continuing his taunts. Don't forget, you've already lost once, so you are the challenger here. Tisk, you're really annoying. Right back at you. Finally finishing their pre-fight speeches, the two fighters suddenly fell silent, causing the atmosphere to solidify as an oppressive aura shrouded the place. Chapter 218, Copy and Paste. Meanwhile, just as the two current peaks of this world were about to clash under the watchful eyes of the entire world, Yuta, who was currently far away at the Aoyama cemetery, had no idea about any of this as he was completely cut off from the outside world, undergoing a complete transformation. This transformation first began with his immense reserves of cursed energy, which quickly transformed into a neutral/chaotic energy that was of higher quality and potential. Then, the transformation started touching upon his cursed technique copy, and his accompanying cursed spirit Rika. So, starting with Rika, who usually acts as Yuta's storage for cursed techniques, cursed tools, and even as a huge external reserve of cursed energy. She silently disappeared, getting absorbed back into the core of Yuta's cursed technique, which also started mutating the moment this happened. Moreover, things weren't only limited to this, as the disappearance of Rika also caused its huge reserves of cursed energy to get absorbed back by Yuta, causing his already immense energy levels to reach even higher heights. However, Yuta couldn't care much about this right now, as he was currently trying to determine the changes that had occurred to his ability. Amazing! All limitations are removed, I can now copy and use any ability I lay my eyes on. Moreover, there is also a higher level of copying called paste, which allows me to make the copied abilities truly mine by pasting this ability into my body. Additionally, I can even paste this ability into other people's bodies. However, there is a limit to the number of times I can do this, be it to myself or to others. Scanning through his newly optimized ability, trying to find and analyze any details he might have missed, a smile couldn't help but appear on Yuta's face as he finally judged that there were no hidden restrictions. Determining this, the excitement on Yuta's face became more and more apparent, as from this moment on, he is no longer limited to only using his full power for 5 minutes, now, he can use it for as long as his energy reserves allow him to. However, it's a pity that nothing is perfect in this world, as when there are advantages, there are drawbacks, and in this situation, that would be the disappearance of his accompanying cursed spirit, Rika. Thinking of this, Yuta immediately fell silent, the joyful look on his face subsiding quickly. Goodbye, my friend. Bidding farewell to it, Yuta felt a sense of melancholy. After all, even though the real Rika was back, this didn't mean that he didn't feel somewhat nostalgic toward the cursed spirit Rika who fought alongside him for a very long period of time. He still felt somewhat reluctant losing it. However, Yuta quickly suppressed these feelings, as he knew that he didn't have much time left before Sukuna gets unsealed. He might get freed at any moment, so I have to be quick. It's just that while my new ability copy and paste is very powerful and my energy became higher in quality, which in turn increased my output and attack power, I actually lost my domain expansion, which is also another drawback of switching between power systems. From the information feedback that I got, domain expansion conflicts with the third stage of this power system, causing it to be unable to be used. Moreover, domain expansion is based on one's innate ability/curse technique, so, if this were to change like what happened to me, the domain expansion would also logically become unusable. So, if I want to use it, I have to reach the outer dream level of this power system. However, I might not be able to achieve this in such a short period of time. Gritting his teeth, Yuta felt conflicted between trying to forcefully reach higher levels as quickly as possible to make his chances higher, and between going out quickly so as to not get attacked by Sukuna if he were to get unsealed before he finished his practice. I should just... However, before Yuta could finish making his decision, a voice suddenly sounded directly into his soul, causing him to freeze in shock. If you are worried about Sukuna, then you don't have to. I've made it so that he will only get unsealed once you finish your practice. Hearing this, Yuta's eyes shrank for a moment before finally restoring his calm as he recognized the voice. Lorien. Please note that this is a recorded message, I am not actually speaking to you. Hey. Additionally, please note that the time here unfolds differently from the outside world. No matter how long you stay here, it'll only be a moment outside, so take your time. Hearing this, Yuta didn't know what to make of the situation, as he was still confused by everything that was happening. However, after reacting and analyzing everything that was said, Yuta couldn't help but release a sigh of relief, knowing that this was the best possible turn of events. So, not wasting any time, Yuta quickly restored his focus, trying to reach the outer dream stage as quickly as possible. Wait for me, I'll protect everyone. However, just as Yuta's heart was filled with a sense of guardianship, wanting to protect everyone, an entirely different and opposing emotion was currently unleashed kilometers away from this position. There, at the origin of this emotion, a young woman with a tall athletic build and long dark green hair could be seen standing in front of a huge old-looking household that looked like it was composed of several interconnected buildings for housing people and included several areas for meetings, training, and storage. Standing there, the young woman clenched the sword she was holding, a slight feeling of hesitation gracing her heart. Does this actually mean anything? Chapter 219, Day, Mortality in the Red Dust. Does this really mean anything? Looking at the huge estate in front of her, Maki couldn't help but pause her movement as she held the weapon in her right hand even tighter. Now that she reached her target location, she actually felt something she didn't think that she would ever feel in this situation: hesitation. Is it really okay to kill them? After all that I have seen was nothing but future things that haven't happened yet. What I am going to do right now is kill innocents. However, just as this thought came to mind, she instantly suppressed it as a sneer manifested itself on her face. Innocent. These guys. Those guys have no cure, then can't change. Thinking of the things she experienced in her childhood and the things that would have happened if she hadn't met Lorien, a decisive look flashed in her eyes as she took a step forward toward the clan's estate. While the things I've seen only happened in the future, this doesn't mean that it won't happen at the first opportunity they get. This is no longer a matter of future or present actions, it's a matter of principles. Such an antique clan stuck on past glory shouldn't exist. There is no need to give them a chance. They won't appreciate it anyway. Sympathizing with the enemy is equal to being cruel towards oneself. Our positions are innately conflicting, so there is no need to think about any of this anymore. Step. 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 Continuing her walk, the closer she got to the door the more decisive and cold her eyes became, with her resolve finally reaching its peak the moment she stood inches away from the entrance. Not hesitating for a moment, Maki raised her slender leg and kicked down the huge door, causing a cloud of smoke to puff up with its fall. Boom! With the loud noise echoing across the estate, the members of the ancient clan quickly reacted as they instantly sprung into action, immediately rushing towards the source of the noise. What's that noise? Did someone break in? But the barrier hasn't reacted. Of course, the first to react was the strongest group of Jujutsu sorcerers within the Zenin family, which are the members of the Hei unit, who are composed of the members ranked semi-grade 1 and above. This elite unit, who has immense authority within the Zenin clan, is currently led by Naya, who was also making his way toward the clan entrance with delay. As for the other members of the clan, who were divided into the Kukuru unit, which is comprised of Zenin male members who don't possess innate techniques, and the Akashi, who are members who have cursed techniques, but do not meet the requirements for joining the Hei, they also quickly started organizing themselves, swiftly following the lead of those in the Hei unit. However, just before they could reach their target location, a cold and emotionless voice suddenly echoed across the estate, which was then followed by some sort of power that shrouded everything and everyone within the estate. Domain expansion, mortality in the red dust. The moment this phrase was uttered, the world instantly turned scarlet red for all those who were forcefully dragged within the domain. Where is this? Domain expansion. Standing atop the red sand dunes, all those who were unfortunately present couldn't help but gaze at the crimson sky, red clouds, and the bloody moon in both awe and wariness. Something feels off with this domain. But why is everything red? Not to mention the aforementioned elements, even the air and atmosphere itself appeared to be tinted with a red hue by some sort of power. However, soon enough, no one was left in the mood to continue observing the place or wonder about the aesthetics of this realm. After all, they quickly discovered that they had much larger issues to face. Everyone try using your cursed techniques! Suddenly shouted Aji Zenin, an ugly look manifesting itself on his face, which was soon shared by all those present. I can't use it. Same here. One attempt after another, the clan members present all fell into panic as they tried denying the inevitable. Right now, they were experiencing firsthand the power of this domain/realm born after Maki reached the outer dream level. What should we do? Even cursed energy became very difficult to manipulate. As this fact came to light, panic quickly ensued in the ranks of the Zenin clan members, as this was the worst thing that could happen to a Jujutsu sorcerer. Not to mention Jujutsu sorcerers, losing power is the worst possible outcome for anyone who has ever gained power, and the impact is even worse for those of the Zenin clan who have always prided themselves on their cursed techniques and curse energy. However, just as everyone's emotions were reaching their highest ever point, a mocking voice suddenly echoed across the desert, completely detonating the atmosphere. Doesn't feel good, does it? Becoming the trash you have always detested. Hearing this voice, the first to react was Aji, who instantly recognized who it was. However, this wasn't because of love or familiarity, it was mainly based on the resentment he had always felt toward the biggest stain on his life. Maki! He growled angrily. Step! 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 You actually recognized me, that's a surprise. However, before Aji could answer, Naya suddenly spoke, still holding his haughty and proud attitude. The failure actually dared to come back after running away for so long, but what are you actually planning to do? That's the question. Hearing this, Maki maintained the indifferent look on her face as she responded coldly. I am here to end this clan. End it? Did gaining some power get into your head? It seems that a failure will always be a failure. Not bothering to respond, Maki continued, looking coldly at Naya, who couldn't help but continue. Nothing to say? Such an indifferent and cold heart. Indifferent, hey? Then let me give you a choice. Choice. This is my domain, it holds the power to negate all supernatural powers. Here, only pure physical power and techniques can work. Hearing this, the eyes of all those present shrank collectively as even Naya couldn't help but question her. Your point? You indeed haven't touched my bottom line yet, so, as I said, I'll give you a choice, it's either your life or your powers, you'll lose one of the two here today. Chapter 220, Circle After Circle. You'll lose one of the two here today. Hearing this cold declaration which echoed across the desolate plain, a chill ran down the spines of all those present as feelings of panic and impending doom quickly filled their hearts. This isn't happening right. Patience. The members of the Hay group will take care of it. Why yes. I don't think. Shut up. Yes. It's just that as the lower members of the clan were looking in both hope and expectation at the powerful members of the Hay group, these members didn't look that great, their faces turning ugly as they visibly held down their anger while they tried their best to forcefully shatter the shackles that were imposed on their power by this sudden domain. Move. Move. What's going on? Frankly, if it weren't for the fact that they temporarily couldn't use their cursed techniques, they would have already rushed toward Maki trying to tear her apart. Never in their lives had they faced such humiliation. It's just that no matter what they tried, they still couldn't do anything, which caused them to get more and more irritable. However, the most affected one was clearly Aji, who finally couldn't hold himself back as he started shouting at her. You failure! Have you forgotten who raised you? Without us, you wouldn't even be here. Gritting his teeth, Aji continued throwing insults at Maki, not making the situation any better. You ungrateful bitch! A dog who the hand which feeds it, I should have ended your useless and pathetic life long ago, you and your sister are the biggest stains on my life. This sentiment was also shared by the Zenin clan members, who also started throwing insults at her so as to vent their frustration. Ungrateful dog! Useless woman! You should use that sword of yours to commit seppuku. Just do it. It's just that as they continued throwing insults at her, Maki didn't actually look fazed at all, as she just sneered in response and said, I don't deny the fact that I have lived in this clan and was fed by it. Then. However, before the man in front of her could finish his words, he was interrupted by Maki, who continued her speech. Don't misunderstand, that fact is the only reason as to why I even gave you a choice. However, it seems that in the end, I'll have to make it for you. You. Well, thankfully the clan leader is still at Shibuya, as he might be the only one that I don't want to kill from this clan. Frankly, this saves me from some headaches. Saying this, Maki looked at the group in front of her, which was solely composed of men, as she spoke coldly. So, what will it be, your powers or your lives? Hearing this cold declaration for the second time, the Zenin clan members finally realized that there was no talking their way out of this, which caused them to finally use their last resort. New shadow style, simple domain *n times. In an instant, as if everyone had practiced this move together many times, circle after circle swiftly emerged surrounding the members of the Hay group and some other members who were capable of using this technique. Their move was so quick and coordinated that Maki didn't have time to stop them even if she wanted to. As expected of such an ancient clan, even if they are rotten to the core, they still have some skills, but that's to be expected, otherwise, someone else might have ended them long ago, which would have saved me a lot of effort. Thinking of this, a look of interest suddenly appeared on Maki's face as she looked at the simple domains, wondering if they were effective against domains built on the dream path. They are effective but not fully. Basically, a simple domain is an anti-domain technique that erects a small barrier around the user to protect them from the effects of a domain expansion. So, as long as the small barrier constructed by this technique is maintained, it works against all domain-like attacks, including this one. However, narrowing her eyes, Maki looked at the constantly shaking small barriers while nodding silently. As expected, the domains constructed by the dream path are much stronger than normal domains, so, with a simple attack, I should be able to shatter their defenses. Moreover, having a simple domain won't actually do them any good, as while they could now use their cursed techniques and cursed energy freely, once they try to use their powers to affect the environment outside their simple domains, they'll instantly get negated, so it doesn't actually help them much. Only abilities that are used on their own bodies are somewhat useful. Understanding the situation, Maki couldn't help but think back to her talk with Lorien after trying to fight him using her newborn domain and eventually getting beaten up without the power to even fight back. Law, the power of law. If I reach that stage, then my negation will reach a law-level state similar to Lorien's. That way, even simple domains will become completely ineffective once my domain is expanded. Not to mention simple domains, even their cursed energy may instantly disappear. However, just then as Maki was daydreaming about reaching the next stage, her opponents swiftly took advantage of her inattentiveness as they tried to launch a series of attacks to end things as quickly as possible before their simple domains collapsed. Swish! It's just that before their attacks could land, Maki suddenly raised her sword blocking Aji's flaming sword slash. As ruthless as ever. Not as cold as you. Swish! Ducking her head and dodging an attack from the back which was launched by Naya, Maki landed a swift sidekick to Aji's stomach sending him flying before turning her head toward Naya, her main target. You know, I've wanted to do this for a very long time. Not talking? That's surprising. Not caring about his response, Maki didn't hold back any longer as she didn't want to waste any more time with this useless family of hers. Kill some and negate others, let's choose the lucky ones that are going to live. Why do I feel like I got infected by Lorien's personality? Is it because I stayed with him for a long time? Tisk, that guy really has a bad influence on people. Chapter 221, Treatment. Tisk, that guy really has a bad influence on people. Shaking her head lightly, a chuckle couldn't help but escape Maki's lips as she finally turned her full attention toward Naya. Swish! Launching a swift attack, Maki's sword was covered by her negation ability so as to deliver maximum damage. However, just before her attack could land, she suddenly sensed a force trying to interfere with her actions. Paralyzing gaze. It's just that before the large pair of eyes that suddenly appeared behind her could fully manifest themselves, they were quickly negated by Maki's domain. This in turn caused a powerful backlash to Renta Zenon, who couldn't help but scream in pain as he held his now bleeding eyes. Ack! However, while his attempt was quite useless and even rendered its user unable to continue fighting, it still gave Naya and the others time to regroup and restart their attacks. Projection sorcery. Swish! Taking advantage of the situation, Naya exerted his power to its maximum capacity, launching a barrage of punches at Maki, who raised her weapon to defend as a reaction. Boom! Boom! Easily defusing the attacks, Maki didn't look like she was making much of an effort, with all movements looking both graceful and calm, opposite to her opponent who was desperately attacking with all his might. Damn it! Why can't my power affect her body? Thought Naya while gritting his teeth. Does this damn power even extend to her body? This isn't fair. Thinking of their situation, a feeling of helplessness and despair quickly filled Naya's heart as he couldn't help but strengthen his attacks. No. I have to fight. We still have a chance. However, sadly, this slim hope that had just ignited was instantly extinguished by Maki, who suddenly erupted forward with a powerful slash which instantly interrupted Naya's rhythm. Swish! This attack was so fast and precise, swiftly phasing through all of Naya's defenses before he could even react. Puff! Following a silver sword light that dangled in the air for a moment alongside a trail of blood, an arm abruptly flew into the sky before soon falling to the ground with a loud thud. Did you forget that this is my realm? While normally it might not be possible for normal domains, my sure hit attacks are actually still effective. However, I have to say, you have slow reactions for a self-proclaimed quick guy. Said Maki mockingly as she looked in disdain at Naya, who had already jumped back. After this attack, she didn't even bother targeting him any longer, as her power had already started eroding Naya's body, beginning from the wound that she had just inflicted on him. At this moment, not to mention fighting, Naya could hardly even move his body. Moreover, his simple domain had already collapsed, pushing him back to his original powerless state, and even worse. Leaving him powerless in a world that will soon be subverted is the worst possible punishment for him. As my power continues eroding his body, it will then permanently erase the ability that's innately engraved into him at birth and purify the cursed energy in his body into nothing. I'd like to see his face as he watches the normal people he looks down upon bypass him while he remains powerless, unable to do anything about it. However, he won't be the only one to receive such a treatment. Thinking of this, a cold smile appeared on Maki's face as she looked at her remaining targets, who were rushing toward her, each attacking in his own way. In a hurry to die. Swish! Boom! Boom! Following another flaming sword slash from Aji, 3 more different attacks were launched from different directions. However, seeing this, Maki didn't seem fazed at all, as she didn't deem them dangerous enough for her to take them seriously. This is mainly because the cursed techniques of the remaining members were external in the way they manifested themselves, which made them quite useless. This is because the moment any of them appears outside the user's simple domain, they instantly get erased. As for why they are using simple domains instead of the falling blossom emotion, which is the go-to secret art passed down in the big three sorcerer families as a countermeasure to domains? That's because unlike simple domains, in which the user manifests their own domain to nullify a domain expansion's auto-hit attack, falling blossom emotion shrouds the user in cursed energy that counterattacks the moment a domain's guaranteed hit makes contact. In this way, cursed energy defends the user automatically, countering any attack with equal force to nullify it. Usually, such an ability is quite useful in countering normal domains, however, it is quite useless when facing the power-negating realm, as even cursed energy itself gets erased. This is also why they chose to use simple domains instead of their past family technique, as it is better suited for this situation. However, the change of methods apparently wasn't enough to stop the Xenon clan members from attacking, as they simply didn't have any other choice. Swish! As the flaming sword attack alongside the two enlarged and earth-covered fists got closer, a wave of blackish energy suddenly erupted with Maki as the center, like a tsunami, abruptly swallowing all the incoming attacks and even the ones who launched them without any visible resistance. Buzz! Moreover, the energy wave didn't stop there, as it continued moving forward, relentlessly swallowing everyone and everything in its path. Aghh! No! Looking at this indifferently, Maki gazed at the desperate and hopeless eyes of those who had previously made her life a living hell and said, "This is the end. I don't have time to continue playing with you." Then, with a number of abrupt slashes that sent sword energy attacks toward the crowd, Maki harvested the lives of those whom she deemed unfit to continue living, only leaving a few alive, such as Naya and her father, to continue living their lives as normal people. Enjoy your lives. I hope that we won't meet again. Chapter 222, The Battle Begins. Meanwhile, just as the one-sided massacre was currently unfolding at the Xenon estate, a battle of much greater weight and scale was about to begin at the Shibuya station. There, Lorien and Gojo could be seen standing face to face, each of them ready to erupt with unimaginable strength at a moment's notice. However, before that could happen, Lorien suddenly turned his head toward the direction of the Xenon clan, and more precisely Maki. Tisk, did it end so quickly? Well, that's to be expected. After all, with all the training she had, it would be weird if there was any resistance. However, it's a pity that she took care of things that quickly. The battle wasn't even that interesting. However, the ending was at least good, so that's good, I guess. Rubbing his shin, a number of insidious and amusing ideas that could make the situation much more interesting suddenly flashed in Lorien's mind. However, the moment they appeared, Lorien quickly extinguished them, as he didn't have time for that right now. Well, there is no need to drag the Xenon massacre any longer. Let's let Maki do whatever she wants. It's her business anyways, not mine. However, it appears that the power I left on her so that I can watch the battle has gone to waste. Indeed, as weird as it may sound, it is as Lorien has already stated, when sending Maki to the Xenon clan, he has left some power on her so he could watch the battle even though it is outside his perception range. Anything to watch an interesting show, I guess. However, just as Lorien was deep in thought, a voice suddenly sounded, abruptly interrupting his thought process. "Where are you looking at?" said Gojo, his voice full of curiousness as he also looked in the same direction that Lorien was looking at, a puzzled look appearing on his face. "The Xenon clan is dead." "Dead? And who did it?" quickly asked Gojo, his interest peaking. "It's Maki." "Hey! Surprised?" "Well, not that much. I somehow expected such an ending for them. Personally, I have never liked them as a group, it's just that I had to deal with it. Can't say I didn't expect such a response," said Lorien, rolling his eyes at Gojo. "Never asked you for your prediction." That was a quick switch to trash talking. However, it's indeed about time that we begin our battle." Hearing this, Gojo, who was looking relaxed, suddenly focused his full attention on Lorien, causing the atmosphere to instantly tense up. Seeing this, Lorien smiled as he also decided to get serious so as to give due respect to his opponent. However, before doing that, he still had one last thing to say. "Before fighting, let me warn you one last time, without conceptual levels of power or at least attacks that reach that level, you'll always be at a disadvantage." Saying this, Lorien couldn't help but think about Gojo's end in a certain future when fighting Sukuna. Sukuna's last attack against Gojo was basically a semi-law level conceptual attack which is completely above what Gojo could really defend against. It is an attack that targets the world and space itself, which might be even effective against me, so I really wonder how the battle between him and Yuta will transpire. However, there shouldn't be that much of an issue as Sukuna doesn't have the 10 Shadows technique as a help to further improve his power, so it is still unknown if he is able to launch such an attack in this timeline. But, the real question here is how far did Gojo improve his power after getting information from me and coming into contact with the law level in our last battle? This battle might actually be more interesting than I have previously anticipated. It would be amazing if Gojo is able to launch an attack at the law level, it will be helpful even for me. Don't let me down. Thinking of this, a rare feeling of excitement coursed through Lorien's body as his fighting intent got ignited. Come. Let's fight. Swish. Shouting out loud this phrase as a declaration that the battle has commenced, Lorien didn't waste any time rushing toward Gojo, who also raised his hands to defend. Come. Don't expect things to be as easy as last time. Swish. Clash. Clash. Boom. In an instant, Lorien and Gojo went through tens of clashes, their hands transforming into nothing but after images as each of them showcased very high levels of martial arts. You've greatly improved. Even your martial arts have reached such a level, it seems that the boost that the 6 eyes give you is much greater than I had anticipated, said Lorien while dodging an incoming fist that was directed to his face. Swish. Seeing his attack easily being dodged, Gojo didn't look flustered, instead, a combined feeling of happiness and joy welled up inside his chest. However, just as Gojo was feeling excited, a sudden blow abruptly landed on his chest, phasing right through his defenses as if predicting what all his future defending actions would be. Puff. Spitting a mouthful of blood, Gojo did a backflip, using it to dissipate his momentum while also taking advantage of the time to immediately heal his injury using RCT. That attack, it wasn't an illusion. Looking at Lorien's golden eyes, which shone with a mysterious yet brilliant light, a heavy look appeared on Gojo's face as he understood something. It seems that I am not the only one with special eyes. It's interesting that we have a lot in common, from as simple as hair color to personality and even ocular prowess. Shaking his head, Gojo knew that it wasn't time to think about any of this as he quickly rushed back toward Lorien, his fists getting covered with a purplish hue. Minimal release, purple. Let's begin the second round. Chapter 223, Second Things. Seeing this, a smile full of excitement appeared on Lorien's face as he also rushed towards Gojo, throwing a couple of punches of his own. However, if the people from all over the world who were watching the battle were to look carefully, they'd quickly notice that despite starting the second round, Lorien still hadn't used his sword nor used any of his abilities other than the sure hit power that allows him to bypass Gojo's infinity and land attacks on him. Well, there is no harm in getting hurt once in a while. I'm really curious about how much damage this new technique of his can do to me. Swish. Boom. However, fortunately, or more precisely, unfortunately for him, Lorien didn't have to wait long to satisfy his curiosity, as after a couple of quick clashes, the results became apparent. Drib. Drib. Tisk, not that bad of technique. Glancing down at his forearms and wrists, which he had just used to directly defend against Gojo's attacks, large and clear cracks could be seen spreading from the points of impact. These cracks looked eerie and bloody as small portions of rotten and damaged flesh and bones were clearly visible, with some parts even falling down to the ground. Hiss. Taking a deep breath of cold air through his gritted teeth as he resisted the pain, Lorien's regeneration finally kicked into action, swiftly healing the wounds in a fraction of a second and restoring his arms to their normal healthy state. Clenching his hands and relaxing them a couple of times, Lorien fell silent for a moment as he couldn't help but look at Gojo before finally shaking his head. Does he not get it yet? Abilities that haven't reached the law level are practically useless to me. However, it's still too early to judge. I don't think that Gojo is that dumb. Crackle. Crackle. Meanwhile, on the opposite side, just as Lorien was judging the situation, Gojo was also doing the same. Regeneration. Can't say I am surprised about that. However, it seems that this newly developed technique of mine is useful. For now, that is. Cracking his knuckles, the grin on Gojo's face grew wider as he looked at Lorien in front of him, ready to pounce at him at any moment. He isn't using any of his abilities yet, so I have to try and do as much damage in this small and unknowable time period. Him underestimating me will be my best chance to victory. I have to take advantage of it. Swish. Not hesitating for a moment, Gojo immediately broke the weird state both parties were in with a swift attack, which was met with impeccable defense from Lorien's side. Boom. 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 It's just that as the two continued to clash, the aftermath of their battle started affecting everything around them, as whatever was left in the vicinity after the battle between Gojo and the cursed spirits was also destroyed, practically leaving nothing behind. However, neither of the two combatants cared about this right now, as both of them were laser-focused on winning. Swish! Punch after punch, the two fighters kept switching tempos, with each of them attacking for a while before quickly returning to defense so as to get ready for the opponent's counterattacks. Right now, the two were fighting on equal terms, with neither of them getting any real advantage. Of course, this was mainly because Lorien was still only using pure physical strength and technique to fight Gojo, who was using his minimum release, purple. Tisk, this technique is much more annoying than I had previously expected. This guy really uses every technique to its maximum potential. Analyzing their last couple of clashes, Lorien couldn't help but feel annoyed, as even though he clearly had the better martial arts and physical strength between the two, the way Gojo used purple to sometimes abruptly expand his attack range and then swiftly reduce it, greatly limited Lorien's offensive capabilities. However, this limitation didn't last long, as after getting used to it, Lorien was quick to adapt, causing his advantage to become clearer and clearer, with Gojo getting suppressed with each passing second. His martial arts improved greatly compared to our last fight, thought Gojo as he dodged a sudden kick to the chest by abruptly laying on the ground and rolling away. And here I thought that I had caught up to him. However, it seems that he hasn't stagnated at all. Frankly, if Lorien were to hear this, he would probably laugh at Gojo for expecting him to actually lay back and stagnate. After all, even with all the things he's been busy with, Lorien had never stopped improving in all aspects thanks to his ability. Right now, Lorien's power reached the semi-law level not only in his dream path but also in terms of martial arts. It's just that compared to the clear way laid by the dream path, the martial path is much harder to walk on. However, this wasn't that important in this battle, as even the semi-law level is still much higher than whatever level Gojo's martial arts are at, so, the results were very predictable. Swish! Boom! It's just that as he got more and more overwhelmed, Gojo knew that he couldn't continue fighting like this, as he discovered that his chances were very slim in winning in such close quarters combat. This is really a pain. I expected things to be hard, but not like this, thought Gojo, quickly planning his next actions. However, sadly for him, Gojo didn't have time for this, as just as they were clashing, Lorien's hands were abruptly lit up with a purple hue identical to the one covering Gojo's hands. Swish! Puff! His eyes widening in shock, Gojo reacted as quickly as he could, jumping away and creating some distance from Lorien so as to gain time to heal his destroyed forearm. Drib! Drib! It's this annoying copy ability of his again. It's still as annoying as I recall it to be. Looking at Lorien, who was standing in place and looking at him with a teasing look, Gojo clenched his newly healed hand and raised it in front of him, sending Lorien the internationally recognized greeting gesture. A bit salty, aren't we? Hat, I thought that you would keep only using martial arts. Never stated that. Falling silent for a moment, Gojo ignored the mocking look on Lorien's face as he started weighing his options. Fighting a long battle is not to my advantage. Moreover, I have to be careful of what abilities I use, as he would probably just copy them and throw them back at me. I should strive for a one-hit ending. So. Suddenly raising his right hand in front of him and forming a seal, a wide crazed grin appeared on Gojo's face as he declared his second domain expansion today. Domain expansion, Unlimited Void. Chapter 224, Lorien's Domain. Shibuya Metro Station. There, under the watchful eyes of the whole world, a miraculous scene that looked as if it was forcefully taken from some sort of otherworldly fantasy book was unfolding for all to see and enjoy. Buzz! The moment Gojo expanded his domain, it was as if the starry sky itself descended upon the battlefield, causing everything within the domain's range to get shrouded by some sort of suppressive force. Moreover, compared to the last time Gojo launched his domain, this one was clearly much larger, stronger, and more solid. This was clearly apparent by just looking at the elements that composed it, such as the veil of darkness, the stars, and the symbolic black hole hanging in the sky. All these elements combined, which were churning with intense cursed energy, formed a powerful pressure that oppressed all things within it. However, that was nothing but the beginning, as the moment it got deployed, the domain's effects immediately kicked into action, sending waves upon waves of information toward its target. Bzzzzz. This should keep him occupied for a while until I prepare my next strike. He might sense it, but given his personality, he won't try stopping me from charging these attacks. I only have 2 new methods left, all I can do now is hope that one of them works. However, just as Gojo was thinking about his next course of action, a brilliant and beautiful golden light suddenly emerged from the center of the starry sky, overshadowing everything next to it. It's just that for Gojo, this beautiful golden light wasn't something to be happy about, as by looking at its origin, he immediately determined that it had emerged from the exact location he was targeting. Realizing this, Gojo's face turned serious as he got ready for the counterattack. What is it now? However, even after waiting for a couple of moments, the expected counterattack never came. Instead, the golden light just continued to get brighter without actually doing anything. Seeing this, Gojo couldn't help but focus his attention on Lorien, trying to understand what was going on. Hey! Opening his eyes wide, Gojo noticed that while his domain had covered the entirety of the metro station, it actually hadn't touched Lorien yet, as it got blocked by the same golden light that caught his attention. Is that why he deployed it? Is it similar to the blocking technique he used in our previous battle? However, before Gojo could further analyze the situation, something amazing suddenly happened, stunning everyone who watching the battle. This included the normal people watching from all over the world, the Jujutsu sorcerers, and even Gojo himself. This is... Gazing in shock at the spectacle before them, everyone's eyes went wide as they watched the golden light finally bloom into its true form. There, from the center of the event, a golden crown tree suddenly emerged, rising dominantly, piercing right into the dark sky. However, that wasn't the end, as following its emergence, the destroyed environment around suddenly transformed as the rubles born from the earlier battles were twisted into a different shape. Mountains and rivers, green hills and beautiful trees, hot sand dunes and icy mountains, all these elements and phenomena materialized one after the other. Moreover, as the literal twin cherries on top, this magnificent scene was completed by the appearance of the sun and moon circling one another in harmony atop the towering golden tree. This... Is that a domain? Impossible. Watching all of this, the sorcerers who had already fled the scene and were finally safe and sound couldn't help but exclaim in sheer surprise and horror. Never in their lives had they seen such an amazingly insane spectacle. They even started questioning their own worldviews and knowledge. This was also true for the normal people, who kept having their worldviews and presuppositions shattered over and over again. Each time they think that they have seen the peak of power in the Jujutsu world, someone suddenly appears, completely piercing through these silly ideas. From the somewhat normal battle at the beginning, Yuden's battle, then Gojo's appearance and his use of domain expansion, until finally this peak moment where ultimate power was unfolded for all to witness. What is that? Crazy, this is too crazy. I think that I am still asleep. I must have drank too much yesterday. Why yes, I also think so. However, the normal people and the Jujutsu sorcerers weren't the only ones who were shocked by the sudden emergence of what looked like a complete ecosystem. Rather, there was also a very important character who also noticed it. This power, no question about it, it's that guy. Gritting his teeth, the king of curses Sukuna, who was still sealed in place by the power that Lorien had left behind, couldn't help but grit his teeth. So he's this close. Glancing at Yuta, who was still undergoing his transformation and walking further and further on the dream path, an icy look full of intense killing intent appeared on Sukuna's face. You want to use me as a stepping stone, right? Then be careful of slipping on this stone and falling to your death. However, thinking about his situation, Sukuna calmed down quickly, realizing that this wasn't actually that bad. This might actually be a great opportunity. To be honest, if I were to go after that guy right now, my chances of winning are very slim. However, unknowingly, he had been providing me with a lot of opportunities to grow. First, it was the conceptual attack he left on me. That attack is very compatible with my cursed technique, which aided me a lot. Moreover, at the end he even helped me heal the damage it caused me. Next, it is this seal that's currently being imposed on me, which allows me to further sense the conceptual power it holds. And finally, it is the kid in front of me who appears to be switching from using cursed energy to an entirely different type of power, which is very likely what that guy uses. So, if I were to devour this kid in front of me, there is a high chance that I can reach much greater heights. Thinking of this, the killing intent in Sukuna's eyes disappeared, as it instead got replaced by a cunning look. Arrogant guy, things won't be that easy. Your end will be at my hand. Frankly, if Sukuna could move, he would have already started laughing wildly. However, it's a pity that the seal still holds strong. It's just that meanwhile, just as Sukuna was feeling joyful, Gojo, who was already facing Lorien, wasn't feeling as such. How should I deal with this? Chapter 225, Domain Expansion Phases. His eyes shrinking fiercely into a pin-sized blue dot, Gojo's brain worked at its maximum capacity trying to think of some countermeasures that would allow him to get out of his current bad situation. However, before he could think of anything useful, Lorien's realm/domain clashed with his already expanded domain. Swish! Damn it! The moment this happened, all the people watching couldn't help but hold their breaths in both silence and expectation as they waited for some sort of miracle to occur. It's just that as expected, no such thing happened as the moment the two opposing forces made contact. The starry sky formed by Gojo's cursed energy instantly collapsed, causing the sorcerer to freeze in place as he felt the backlash caused by the collapse of his domain. Ugh! Frowning lightly, Gojo maintained his calm, resisting the pain as he subsequently began using his RCT to heal his brain. Shit, there is no way to resist it head-on. However, I must still find a way to deal with it, otherwise, there is no way to fight this battle. Taking advantage of the fact that Lorien hasn't attacked him yet, Gojo continued healing the portion of his brain that's responsible for enacting barriers while also taking the opportunity to analyze Lorien's domain using his 6 eyes. However, the more Gojo analyzed this domain, the more he understood that this wasn't something he could directly deal with. Can this even be called a domain? It has nothing to do with techniques, and even the way that it's formed is more in line with how the normal world is supposed to be. It feels that instead of creating a new layer on top of the canvas which is the world, this domain simply took the place of the canva itself. So, frankly, this can't be called domain, instead, it's more appropriate to call it a realm or a small world. Moreover, now that I think of it, the reason why my domain collapsed earlier wasn't that his domain and mine collided, instead, it was something else. As a normal domain, mine is drawn as an additional layer on top of the canvas which is the world. However, Lorien's realm removes this canvas and forcefully takes its place. So, when this happened, my domain which is on top of the old canvas also forcefully got removed alongside it. Tisk, this is even worse than I had previously anticipated. Wait. Suddenly thinking of something, Gojo couldn't help but repeat one of the thoughts that he had caught in his previous internal musing. Replacing the canvas, replacing the canvas. The more Gojo repeated it, the brighter his eyes shone with excitement as he suddenly thought of a solution for his current predicament, or at least a way to improve his situation. This could work. Finally finding a possible solution just in time for his injury to get healed, Gojo didn't waste any moment in executing it. Domain expansion, unlimited void, alter. Swish! With his domain expanding once more, Gojo's open domain looked like a small river of stars traveling across the vast plains under the majesty of the twin sun and moon as it headed towards the noble golden tree standing in the center of the realm. Seeing this, Lorien, who was about to start mocking Gojo, couldn't help but stop as he looked at the attack that was coming his way in confusion. Does he want to get into a round of domain clashes? But that doesn't make sense. He should have already realized that there is no way for him to come on top in such collisions. Feeling both curious and confused, Lorien decided not to actively attack Gojo's domain expansion and instead waited for it to collapse on its own, as he wanted to see if there was anything special about it. However, against Lorien's expectation and prediction, the star river formed by Gojo's cursed energy actually continued moving unhindered toward him, finally reaching him before he could wake up from his confused state. Looking at the star river in front of him, Lorien's eyes immediately went wide with shock as confusion quickly turned into shock as he didn't expect it to get this far. What's going on? It's just that before Lorien could fully understand the situation, the river of stars suddenly transformed into a ring shape enveloping him within like a nebula. Domain expansion, unlimited void, close. Buzz. The moment Gojo saw this, he immediately gave this order, causing this ring to instantly transform into a closed domain which instantly swallowed Lorien within. Ha ha ha, it worked. Seeing his plan succeed, a smile couldn't help but appear on Gojo's face, who continued operating his technique, wanting to launch his attack before Lorien could fully react and get out of his domain. I must be quick. This technique is one of the 2 methods that I have developed after getting information from Lorien. For other people, this technique has a must-hit effect and is basically unavoidable. However, for Lorien, it is quite the opposite, as he might shatter my domain at any moment. So, knowing this, Gojo kept the domain expansion finger sign in front of him as he started the second phase of his domain expansion, while also starting to chant. Wheel turning monarchs, on the period of decline, Pratityasamutpada. Domain expansion phase, space condensation. Bzzz. The moment this phase began, an incredible amount of cursed energy suddenly appeared within Gojo's unlimited void, forcefully consolidating and condensing it. However, things didn't end there, as the normal-sized barrier also started shrinking quickly, only stopping when it reached the size of a ping-pong ball. It's almost there. Finally reaching the last phase, Gojo could hardly hold back his excitement as he finally launched his new attack. Domain Expansion Phase, Collapse. Crack. 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 Chapter 226, Monster. Domain Expansion Phase, Collapse. This is one of the two techniques that was newly developed by Gojo after studying the information given to him by Lorien among many other sources, enabling him to further master and control barrier techniques and to develop new applications for them. However, instead of calling it a new technique, it's more appropriate to call it a new method of domain application or barrier technique method. This method basically transforms Gojo's domain from a normal closed barrier domain whose function is just to focus on sure hit attacks and entrapping the enemy to a self-explosive death trap. Such transformation is achieved by forcefully filling the domain with cursed energy and spatial powers and then condensing the domain to the absolute limit, in this case, to a ping-pong ball-sized barrier. Following this, using the barrier technique as the carrier, the heterogeneous energy is finally triggered, forming an explosive chain reaction. However, what's formed by this chain reaction isn't just a normal explosion, instead, with all the energy and power targeting one very small single point in space with the objective of cracking it, a spatial collapse with the impact point as the center is finally born. It's basically taking the space around as paper and forcefully piercing a hole through it using all the accumulated energy as a pen. From there, with this hole in space appearing, there is basically no way to control the power and damage, as the force born at that moment no longer has anything to do with Gojo. Usually, when launching attacks, the sorcerer himself won't receive much damage from them, as these attacks are formed by his own cursed energy. However, this is not the case this time, as even the one behind the attack will get injured if touched by this power. This is also why after Gojo launched his attack, he immediately jumped back, trying to create more distance from it. Crack! Crack! Hearing the glass-like cracking noises all around and looking at the pitch-black dark spot in front of him where a hole in space appeared, Gojo couldn't help but relax slightly, knowing that his attack had truly landed. Great, it landed. I don't know why he didn't forcefully dispel it or avoid it, but at least everything worked out well in the end. However, I don't think that it'll be enough. With a serious look on his face, Gojo never expected such an attack to be enough to end this battle. After all, his opponent's abilities were very buggy with basically no solution to them. Moreover, the fact that the domain he's standing in still remains unaffected proves his point even further. So, after jumping back, Gojo immediately began chanting once again with the objective of using the second technique that he developed. Phase, Paramita, Pillars of Light. Cursed Technique Reversal, Red, Maximum Cursed Energy Output. Bzzz. Following this chant, a huge red orb formed by cursed energy instantly appeared in front of Gojo, who swiftly launched to the side, intending for it to take a curve before reaching its target. Then, without interruption, he immediately began chanting again with the objective of launching his cursed technique Blue. Phase, Twilight, Eyes of. However, before he could finish, a mutation suddenly occurred within the domain he was currently standing in, forcing him to stop dead in his tracks. Bzzz. Shake. Shake. Suddenly, it was as if the world itself was shaking, the earth vibrated, the wind howled, and the sun and moon shone brightly in brilliant colors. Then, before anyone could understand what was happening, a silent but sublime power suddenly emerged within the domain for all to witness. Bzzz. The moment this power appeared, it immediately fell like a waterfall into the black space caused by the spatial collapse. Then, under Gojo's rapidly shrinking eyes, time around the destroyed space looked as if it was flowing back as all the spatial cracks started getting healed. However, that wasn't all, as even the damage made to the land, grass, and trees was also getting fixed, removing all signs of any actual damage that had appeared. And like that, in a matter of seconds, everything within the domain was restored to its original beautiful state. If it weren't for the fact that all of this was witnessed by billions of people, some might think that it was actually just an illusion. However, while the domain was restored to its prior state, there was actually still something quite important missing, and that was Lorien himself. It's just that after witnessing the previous scene, none of the people who were watching the battle thought that anything actually happened to him. Damn it! This monster! Did he just tank that? He hasn't appeared yet, he might have actually gotten injured by the attack. I wouldn't put my money on that. But... Bzzz. Crack. However, just then as the debate was heating up, a new small spatial crack suddenly appeared in the spot that Lorien was previously standing in as a familiar hand emerged from within it. This hand was then followed by a shoulder, leg, and then the entire body. Cough. Cough. Nice attack. Coughing lightly, Lorien couldn't help but look at his slightly destroyed clothes before looking at the shocked Gojo in front of him. I have to admit, that was the strongest attack that I have received from an actual opponent. If it weren't for me reacting quickly and using my power to block it, I might have actually gotten gravely injured. Saying this, Lorien couldn't help but sense his own energy reserves before continuing. Well, even then I had to spend a large portion of my energy reserves to actually defend against and get out of the spatial turbulence. That place is truly dangerous. Thinking back to it, Lorien couldn't help but feel slightly afraid. If he were to receive such an attack when he had just traveled to this world, he might not have been able to survive it. It seems that I have to be more careful in the future. God knows what some lunatics might come up with. Hey! Finally reacting, Gojo looked at Lorien in front of him, who looked slightly disheveled but with no actual injury, as he then decided to silently finish his chant for blue before replying to him so as to distract him. Eyes of wisdom. Actual opponent? Did you receive stronger attacks from other people who you don't deem as real opponents? Yes, I almost got insta-killed by someone. If it weren't for outside help I would have died. However, this is not the point now. Saying this, Lorien ignored Gojo's shocked eyes upon hearing the shocking news, as he instead looked at the increasingly powerful blue ball in his opponent's hand and then at the still traveling red orb to the side. Did he launch it before I got out of the spatial turbulence? Does he want to use his unlimited hollow technique? But that thing is practically useless. Is he out of options? However, thinking of the previous attack and the surprise he received, Lorien resisted the urge to use his eyes to just glance at the future or just copy all of Gojo's abilities. Ha 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 ha, where's the fun in that? However, I am more interested in how this guy actually managed to use his domain within mine. Chapter 227, Explanation and Battle resuming. Feeling a mixture of doubtful and curiousness, Lorien continued ignoring the curse technique reversal, red that was still traveling his way in a curve, as he decided to just ask the culprit. I have a question, how did you manage that? Manage what? I mean, how did you succeed in sending your domain towards me? Shouldn't it have clashed with mine? Ah! That! Hearing Lorien's question, a sudden realization couldn't help but hit Gojo, who after a bit of hesitation still decided to answer the question, as he still needed some time to prepare his next attack. How should I explain this? Simply. Whatever. Resisting the urge to facepalm, Gojo couldn't help but look at Lorien speechlessly before continuing. Alright then, simply put, the reason so as to why domains clash is because two domains can't exist in the same space. No shit, Sherlock. Do you want the answer or not? Alright then, where was I? Oh, right. Domains clashing. You see, if the world is analogous to a blank canvas, then domains are akin to different drawings. So, the reason they clash is mainly because two drawings cannot coexist within the same place/canvas at the same time. This still doesn't explain anything. Oh, really? Hearing this and seeing the teasing look on Gojo's face, Lorien couldn't help but frown slightly as he started analyzing what Gojo had just said, trying to find some clues from it. Hey! Could it be? Suddenly thinking of something, Lorien immediately raised his head and looked straight at Gojo, who after seeing Lorien's reaction, said lightly. It seems that you have guessed the reason. Ha 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 ha, yes, to think that such a change in domain structure will have such an effect. Indeed, I was also a bit surprised by it. It's really interesting, domains clash because they are fighting for space/area to exist. However, what happens if one domain replaces the canvas itself and does not act as a drawing? Didn't that question just answer itself? Hearing this, Lorien shook his head, neither agreeing nor disagreeing with Gojo's response. After all, the response to this question is based on many factors, the first of which being the will of the owner of the domain that replaced the canvas. For example, if Lorien had decided to block Gojo's domain from the beginning, it would have been impossible for it to advance even a millimeter, not to mention all that distance. However, this also opens quite the interesting subject of how the domains of Dream Path takers will clash when fighting. After all, this changed from a battle for a place to a draw to battle for who owns the canva itself. Thinking of this, Lorien couldn't help but feel intrigued, wanting to immediately test it. However, this thought was quickly suppressed as he was woken up from his daydream by Gojo, who asked back. So, any other questions? Nope. Shaking his head feeling satisfied with the answer he got, Lorien wasn't about to ask any dumb questions like how Gojo was able to develop techniques such as domain phases. After all, many techniques such as New Shadow Style, Simple Domain, Falling Blossom Emotion, and even Domain Expansion itself were developed by prior ancient sorcerers. So, with that in mind, it would be absurd to state that while those sorcerers have the ability to develop such techniques, Gojo, who's one of the most talented sorcerers to ever live and who has almost reached his full potential, is unable to. Usually, for people like Gojo, the only thing limiting them are their imagination, knowledge, and most importantly the environment they live in. It's just that now as Gojo finally met a true opponent who also gave him time to grow and improve, his previously untapped potential fully exploded, pushing him to even higher heights. However, all of this wasn't that important right now, as all that mattered was the result, a result displayed by the battle that had just resumed. Cursed Technique Lapse, Maximum Cursed Energy Output, Blue. Swish. Finally, with Lorien's negative answer as a signal, Gojo didn't hesitate for a moment as he launched his attack. Following this, Gojo immediately began his chance for purple, albeit a slightly modified, much longer one. 9 ropes, polarized light, the gap between within and without, on the period of decline, collapse. Seeing this, Lorien's face immediately turned serious as he threw all the messy thoughts aside and focused all of his attention on Gojo. After all, the previous attack was enough to raise Lorien's vigilance to a higher state. This chant. It's a bit different from what I remember from the original timeline, so it's probably a modified one. Is it a new attack? Thinking of this, Lorien immediately turned his attention to the red that was coming from the opposite side. If they continue normally in their trajectory, they'll definitely make contact. Should I stop it? Hesitating for a moment, Lorien knew that he'd only need one single thought to mobilize the domain's power to instantly stop these attacks. It's just that looking at the excited Gojo in front of him, whose eyes were burning with passion and with a wide grin drawn on his face, Lorien finally decided not to do so, as he instead bursted out laughing as an excited look not that different from Gojo's appeared on his face. Ha 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 ha. Why should I stop it? You want a direct clash, right? I'll give it to you. Come on, gather all your power, wisdom, and might. Use it all, burn it all, try to reach me. As he thought of this, Lorien immediately threw all caution to the wind as he instead decided to satisfy the audience watching, the man in front of him, and most importantly, himself. Ha 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 ha, I didn't know that I also had such feelings in me. It seems that we truly aren't that different after all. So, with this in mind, Lorien immediately jumped to the side, giving space for the two orbs to make contact, as he then called out his sword and began preparing his own attack/defense. Now, you can't give me any excuses after you lose. Moreover, let's see if you can break this destiny of yours. This reaction was also quickly noticed by Gojo, who was slightly worried about Lorien stopping the attack in its tracks before it actually detonates. Hey! Does he plan to? Ha 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 ha! Finally reacting, the grin on Gojo's face grew even wider as he looked at Lorien in front of him, who looked like he was about to slash forward at any moment. Come on, take it, this is my all. Chapter 228, Full Power. Now, as he finally didn't have to worry about his attack being intercepted midway, Gojo could finally focus his full attention on strengthening his attack and trying to reach beyond his limits. 9 ropes, polarized light. Resuming his chanting, Gojo decided to push things to the next level by upgrading the incantations he was uttering into a fully blown-out ritual. This, alongside forcefully going past the maximum output limit, is the best I can do now. Thinking of this, Gojo gritted his teeth as his body exploded with cursed energy way beyond his physical output limits, causing his body to creak and scream in resistance and useless objection. However, ignoring his instincts, Gojo forcefully continued this as he also started moving his body around slowly as if dancing, while also using different hand signs. This is of course the previously mentioned ritual which is used to further strengthen his attack. You see, Jujutsu has always been a power system based on addition and subtraction. The more skilled a sorcerer becomes, the more he's able to subtract. However, the more alternatively, the more he adds, the more powerful the attack becomes. Usually, Gojo, or anyone else for that matter, wouldn't do such a thing despite the increase in power that they might receive. After all, doing this would be akin to suicide, as in the midst of a battle where even 1 millisecond may decide the winner, suddenly starting to dance is generally frowned upon. However, now with the two opponents reaching a tacit agreement, there is no need to worry about such danger. Hey! He's going all in? It seems that this will truly be the final clash. Noticing Gojo's movement and the state of his opponent's body, Lorien's eyes narrowed slightly as a wide grin appeared on his face. Alright then, let me match you. Bzzz. Fully unfolding his power, the Eternal Dream Realm suddenly started shaking as the silent but majestic power that had erased Gojo's previous attack manifested itself once again, enveloping Lorien within. Now that I think of it, I've never actually used my full power. This is even more the case after starting to walk on the dream path. Thinking of this, Lorien finally began manipulating the power that had just enveloped him, concentrating most of it on the sword that he was holding in a sword-drawing position. Extreme swordsmanship. Bluntly, this is the first time Lorien truly used his domain for combat ever since he summoned it in this battle. Earlier, people might have been confused as to why even though Lorien's domain manifested itself, there wasn't actually any real effect other than being good-looking. However, this is just a misconception. After all, Lorien's domain doesn't actually have any set power/technique like other domains. This is mainly because when making it, Lorien didn't have such a thing in mind, as the main reason he even created it in the first place was to allow himself to use his reality warping power freely without any limitations. So, other than achieving the aforementioned objective that he had set from the beginning, the Eternal Dream Realm usually only acts similar to how a normal world would while also having similar abilities to it. These abilities manifest themselves silently in powers such as suppression to suppress enemies no matter their power level, which is actually most effective in targeting rule/law level beings. There is also boost, which is used to boost himself or allies, and world correction, which was seen in action when it was used to fix the damage caused to the domain by Gojo's previous attacks. Such abilities among many others make this domain very comprehensive and act as a general boost instead of an actual attack method. So, to clear things up, of the many abilities available to him, the one Lorien is currently using is Boost, which is arguably the most important one as it allows him to boost his power to the law/rule level within the domain. Moreover, things didn't end there, as Lorien even focused all this power on one single point, which is his sword blade, while also using his near rule level swordsmanship to fully exert this power. But, it's not over yet. Space and time. Absolute cut. Using his reality warping prowess, Lorien didn't hold back anything as he gave his next attacks the concepts of absolute cutting while also giving it spatial and temporal properties. However, this wasn't the end, as after doing this, Lorien began using his ocular power for the first time in combat ever since he awakened it. Chrono Eyes, Clairvoyance and Lock. Bzzz. With his eyes shining with a brilliant yet mysterious golden sheen, Lorien's eyes automatically locked into the most favorable future, forcefully making the result inevitable and unavoidable. From absolutely locking into its target to choosing the result, cause and effect were reversed at this moment, turning the previously unknowable result into an unchangeable destiny. I won't hold back against you. This is my most powerful attack to date, try to make it out alive. Truthfully, this attack wasn't only Lorien's most powerful attack to date, instead, it is the most powerful attack that he can execute normally for now. The only things he didn't use were actually abilities that directly suppress the opponent, and burning his life. However, this wasn't that important anymore, as the final deciding moment had finally arrived with Gojo's red and blue finally making contact. Unlimited purple, collapse. Eternity, in a moment. ZNGGGGGG. As a bright purple hue silently manifested itself from the merging point of red and blue, it quickly began to grow, swiftly transforming into a large purple sun that swallowed everything around it. However, this state of existence only lasted for a moment before this large 100-meter radius ball abruptly condensed into the size of a fingernail. Crack! 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 This. Crazy. Will it affect other battlefields? Chapter 229, Reactions and Final Clash. Crack! Crack! Crunch! There, in the Eternal Dream Realm, and in view of everyone's watchful eyes, silence descended upon the chosen battlefield. At this decisive moment, only the horrible symphony of what sounded like glass being broken and then violently crunched by some huge force was audible at this critical moment. This creepy noise, which reverberated throughout the area and directly into everyone's ears, gave everyone watching a feeling of unease. But the worst was yet to come, for soon enough Gojo's forceful manipulation caused this ball of death to move quickly towards Lorien's direction. The previously audible cracks and the freshly torn-off pitch-black dark path quickly became visible. Darkness, utter and complete darkness. However, instead of calling that space dark, it's more accurate to call it absent. Moreover, this absence isn't that of color, rather, it is of everything and anything. If we were to consider that Gojo's previous attack had partially succeeded in piercing space, then this one had completely done so. Moreover, it didn't just pierce it, rather, it caused it to completely collapse. Frankly, the only reason anyone is able to appreciate such an attack instead of just looking at a pitch-black dark space is because of the kaleidoscope of colors reflected by the space fragmentations that were situated at the edge of the cracks and path. It seems that not only did space shatter like glass, but even the glass-like space fragments acted like it, reflecting the light around in a myriad of beautiful colors. It's just as powerful as this attack is, it seems that it wasn't something Gojo could easily launch judging by his current state. Poof. Drip. Asterisk drip. Asterisk drip. From what it looks, forcefully controlling such a powerful force while simultaneously going over the output limit wasn't something that could be done without consequences. Originating from his ears, mouth, nose, and even eyes, blood started oozing out as Gojo couldn't even use his RCT at this moment. Cough. This might truly be my last attack whether I win or not. Coughing out another large mouthful of blood, Gojo felt his vision go blurry as he continued to forcefully maintain control of the death ball solely based on his willpower. Gojo-sensei. Teacher. Watching this transpire, those close to Gojo and especially his students couldn't help but feel worried. This is the first time they see the once invincible figure in their minds challenged to such an extent and apparently with little hope of actually winning. I want to help. Clenching his fists so hard causing blood to drip down from between his fingers, Megumi gritted his teeth as he wanted to rush to the battlefield and help the only father-like figure in his life. This sentiment was also shared by Yuji and the other students who were also itching to go out and help. However, just as this sentiment was growing, it was instantly extinguished in the bud by Kusakabe and Nanami who also weren't looking that good. Sit here and watch, you won't be able to do anything even if you go. You'll only be in the way, this is way out of your leagues. Moreover, by the time you reach there, the battle would have already ended. Hearing this, Megumi who was resolving himself to rush over immediately froze in place not knowing what to do. All the complex feelings were swiftly extinguished by what felt like a bucket of ice. This was also the case for the students who finally couldn't help but sit down and watch the battle continue worriedly. Seeing this, the teachers and adults around finally relaxed as they then also turned their attention towards the screen, their hearts also filled with hidden worry, anxiety, and a bit of confusion and complexity. If it were a battle against cursed spirits, Gojo's death might be acceptable in a sense as that was originally the meaning of their existence, however, to die in a battle against another human and even a somewhat friendly one isn't something to be happy about. Hope that they can come out to their senses and not go for the kill. However, it seems that they don't care about anything anymore. It's just that if we were to talk about complex feelings, the one who's most anxious at the moment is Maki who watched this battle in both anxiety, bewilderment, and embarrassment. Both of the figures fighting were people who helped her a lot, the first being Gojo whose protection allowed her to live freely for so long, and the second being Lorien who trained her and allowed her to finally achieve her dreams while also preventing a tragedy from happening. Why go this far? Just stop. It's just that sadly for her, none of the combatants were currently able to hear her thoughts nor did they care much about it as they were having the time of their lives. Moreover, this is especially the case for Lorien who was currently standing at the receiving end of such a powerful attack. Nice attack. Looking at the black hole-like ball that was coming his way, Lorien couldn't help but doubt if he could avoid it even if he wanted to. Can hiding in a dream realm avoid spatial collapse? I somewhat doubt it. This is also true for turning into a dream-like state as while I might not get injured, I will probably get lost in the space turbulence. However, as he thought of this, he quickly shook his head as even if that were possible, Lorien wasn't about to do such a thing as he instead wanted to face it head-on. So, with that in mind, Lorien lowered his body and got in position to slash. Well done, Satoru Gojo. You've exceeded my expectations, so let me exceed yours. Watch and observe, this is the ultimate slash. Swish. Zingug. In that very instant, following the sword draw, everything immediately went silent with the only sound echoing being that of the sword getting unsheathed, even the previous noise born from the space cracking was overshadowed by it. Bzzz. However, this was but a minor detail compared to what this attack caused. Chapter 230, A Familiar Ending. Frozen Time, Sealed Space. With the spatio-temporal powers that were attached to Lorien's sword silently unfolding within the domain following Lorien's slash, everything abruptly came to a standstill. Be it the dust particles in the air, the clouds of dust generated by Gojo's attack, the pure white clouds in the air, or even the rotating sun and moon, nothing was exempted from this rule. Even the black hole-like death ball that was heading toward Lorien silently came to a halt as the mysterious power within the domain silently manifested itself, once again further boosting these characteristics to even greater heights. At this very moment, it was as if the world itself was a video and someone clicked on the pause button. However, as magnificent as this is, it wasn't the main focus of the event, as this was eventually nothing but an after effect of the slash rather than being the attack itself. But, even if that was the case, it was still enough to cause a large debate among those who were watching the battle and were feeling a bit perplexed by what they were witnessing. This. Why did the screen pause? Did something happen to the live broadcast? This is being broadcast by the silver-haired guy that had just appeared, right? Could it be that he got injured by Gojo's attack which caused issues with the live stream? His name is Lorien, and that's indeed possible. It's just that as people were leaning towards this explanation, another group immediately retorted with their own thoughts. If that was the case, then why are the screens themselves still unaffected? Maybe he used some treasure to create them which is independent from the broadcasting feature which he maintains himself. Well, I still think that it's impossible. That criminal effectively pushed the world as we know it into great collapse with his own hands, he deserves to die. Criminal? I wouldn't call him that. God knows how many deaths his selfish act caused because of the riots that are currently occurring all over the world. With instability comes opportunity. Moreover, I prefer seeing the truth rather than living my whole life in a complete illusion. But you need to survive first to enjoy it, and was living in a lie uncomfortable? You know, there is a reason so as to why the world was previously divided as such. Everything comes at a certain price, and aren't you being too pessimistic? A price that not all are willing to pay. After all, most people don't have that big of a dream and just want to live their lives normally. Moreover, aren't you being too optimistic about this change? Spoken like a true sheep, at least now we can all begin from the same starting line. Arrogant, we still don't know what he's up to. After all, I don't believe that he did all of this without actually benefiting himself. Moreover, there is nothing wrong with living prudently, at least that way I'll survive. Coward. Intellectually disabled. You. However, just then as this debate which had already deviated from its original topic was about to heat up even more, a loud and crisp noise that sounded somewhat similar to that of a bar of chocolate snapping into two echoed across the battlefield and into the ears of all those who were watching. Hey! Where did this noise come from? Snap! With everyone's attention swiftly going back to the screen that was broadcasting the battle, the sounds of cold breaths of air being collectively taken spread across the space like a virus. There, in the oppressed and frozen space-time, a black line that looked like it divided everything in sight silently manifested itself. At first, this black line looked rather slim and small, however, it soon grew into a sky-splitting gash that forcefully divided the sky into two with no end in sight. Be it the wind, clouds, or even space, everything that stood in its path was split apart. However, this was after all still nothing but collateral damage which remained after this attack achieved its objective. Crack! However, just then another cracking noise echoed as the frozen ball of death also split from the middle with the top half sliding to the side. This caused the already unstable energy within this death ball to finally erupt into a large explosion. However, just as the first signs of this explosion manifested itself, it was quickly and forcefully suppressed by the domain, causing it to get extinguished dead in its tracks. Looking at this result and looking back at how much effort and preparation this attack took to launch, it frankly felt unsatisfactory and unfulfilling. It felt like thunder without rain. As for Gojo, who was the main target of the attack and who bore the main impact, he froze in place, maintaining his hand sign as a self-depreciating smile slowly appeared on his face. Ah! What an attack! But, this is the end. Hey! At least this time, I made him try his best. However, it's a pity that I won't be able to witness the new era. I just wish that my students don't hold a grudge and do something stupid. Puff. Slash. Drib. Drib. There, at that very moment, under everyone's horrified eyes and terror-stricken hearts, a line of blood slowly appeared across Gojo's stomach, dividing him into two from the middle. Then, as this line grew wider with time, it seemed like Gojo's body could no longer hold itself together as his upper body finally slid off, falling into the ground and only leaving his lower body still standing there unmoving. Blur. Feeling his vision grow blurrier and his body stiffening by the moment, Gojo tried turning his head towards Lorien one last moment as a happy smile appeared on his face. It was really fun though, I don't regret it at all. Chapter 231, Depriving Luck. It was really fun though, I don't regret it at all, it's just that I am a bit reluctant. Thought Gojo as feelings of both satisfaction and unwillingness filled his heart. The satisfaction was born from the intense battle he had just experienced and the unbelievable power he faced in the last attack, which allowed him to glimpse at a higher level of power. As for the feeling of reluctance, it originated from the fact that he was unable to make his last strike reach his opponent, and because he felt like he didn't make his opponent fully enjoy himself. In the end, I really wasn't able to reach him. However, thinking once again of that last attack that cut apart everything in its path, Gojo's eyes shone brightly one last time as he immersed himself in the aftertaste. After experiencing that slash, if I were given another chance, I am confident in making the battle at least more interesting. As he thought of this, Gojo struggled to stay conscious, his vision completely blurring out as he was unable to support himself any longer. Watching this silently, Lorien looked at Gojo's remains before turning his head upwards to gaze at the scar in the sky that he had just created. Well, that's a bit unexpected. Crackle. Crackle. Focusing on the edge of the torn-apart space, Lorien immediately noticed that the world's self-corrective power was clashing with the power left from his attack, causing micro-spatial cracks to appear in the process. However, to be more precise, it's actually clashing with the anti-immortality features of his sword, which was raised to a law-level attack because of the boost from the domain. To think that even such characteristics would be sublimated to the next level. To be honest, I never expected this anti-healing power to be capable of even affecting the world. It's just that now, it appears that I have to pay more attention to the law level. After all, from what I could tell, any attack of that level is capable of affecting the world on an incredible scale. At least much larger than I previously anticipated. However, just as he thought of this, Lorien's eyes suddenly shrank as he sensed that a portion of the luck that he obtained after planting dream trees all over the world and creating the Nightmare Realm was being forcefully taken away by the JJK world. Moreover, this wasn't just a one-time thing. Instead, as more of the world's corrective power appeared to fix the damage caused by Lorien's attack, the more luck got stripped away from him. This caused the previously calm Lorien to get a mini heart attack as his heart sank deeply. After all, the main reason he even stayed for such a long time in this world was to collect more luck and to gain ownership of it, so, he of course couldn't just stand there and watch as his effort goes to waste moments before he achieves his objective. Damn it! This world is really stingy. I've worked so hard to help you improve, and now just because I caused a bit of destruction you are taking away my luck. Ugh, I do understand the logic and fairness behind it. After all, if I help, I get luck, and if I destroy, I get deprived of it. However, cut me some slack, will you? Tisk. However, even though he was complaining about the current situation, Lorien didn't actually waste any time as he immediately used his ability once again to clear away his leftover power. Huff. Huff. Doing this, Lorien looked visibly exhausted as after all that he went through, his energy reserves finally bottomed out. Huff. Fixing stuff is really much harder than destroying them. Cling. Sheathing his sword back, Lorien finally deactivated his domain, causing it to break like glass before disappearing into thin air. Doing this, he turned his attention once again towards Gojo, who was about to breathe out his last breath. As much as I want to see if you could recover on your own and achieve nirvana, I don't want to waste more time here. Moreover, the anti-immortality power is still in effect, so your chances are very slim to say the least. So, with all this in mind, I've decided that it's time to wake the fuck up, samurai. Saying this, Lorien didn't waste any moment as he extended his hand forward, causing two things to happen. The first was removing the anti-healing characteristics from Gojo's body and reconnecting them, and the second was causing a multicolored ball to appear atop his extended palm. This should do it. Swish. With a small wave of his hand, the Dream Path Seed instantly rushed towards Gojo's upper body, instantly submerging into it and causing the sublimation process to begin. This should take a bit longer than usual considering the circumstances. Not feeling any immediate feedback, Lorien sat down on the ground, deciding to recover his energy as he still had a lot of things to do later on. It's times like this that I become more thankful for my initial decision of using my weapon as a sort of energy power bank. Smiling lightly, Lorien placed his weapon on his lap as he began absorbing the stored energy within to restore his energy reserves. This battle is finally over, only one or two remains. I really wonder how Sukuna and Yuta's battle will go. After all, the ability that Yuta awakened is very annoying. However, this is not about abilities at all. After all, the same weapon in the hands of different people has a much different effect. What will decide this battle is how they use their different abilities and if Yuta's power system advantage will be enough to overwhelm the King of Curses. Shaking his head, Lorien decided to not think about it for now and instead focus on the task at hand. Let's leave the speculation to all those watching. Chapter 232, Reactions. Meanwhile, just as Lorien was resting at the center of the battlefield next to Gojo's slowly recovering body, the world outside this broken combat zone was shaken to the core by what they had just witnessed. Shock, awe, fear, and a slither of hope, these were the myriad conflicting emotions that all the people watching experienced together. Damn it! What was that? One attack. That's all it took. That's not the issue. Do you realize how much power is required to cut space like that? Wrong, the question was never how much energy. It's what type of energy. Hey guys! I think that you are going in the wrong direction, that's not important right now. What's important is to understand how to deal with that. Deal with a spatial cut? Moreover, that attack felt like it contained much more than that. Using science to deal with fantasy, not the greatest of ideas. Humph, if we are not able to scientifically analyze it, it just means that our knowledge of the subject is not profound enough. However, just then as a bunch of nerds were debating on this subject, a stuttering voice suddenly sounded next to them, thereby disrupting their conversation. Did you feel it? Hey? Feel what? The world was wailing after the attack, I felt it. What? Where did you feel it? Hey? Hearing this sudden unrelated question, the man instantly froze, a look full of confusion appearing on his face as he was unable to understand what the stranger next to him meant. However, looking at the weird and lascivious look on the man's face, he quickly understood what he was referring to. Fuck off! Ha 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 ha! Of course, such weird interactions were actually in the minority, as most people either kept silent or kept talking about how powerful the last attack was while feeling confused as to why Lorien saved his opponent after supposedly killing him. Additionally, there was also another portion of people who were more interested in the battle between Yuta and Sukuna than the main battle itself. These people only reacted briefly to Lorien and Gojo's battle before quickly turning their attention back to the other screen as they waited in anticipation for the battle to begin. According to them, the reason for this is that the result of the battle between the two silver-haired men was predictable and without any suspense. It's just that while all of this was quite interesting and helpful in understanding what the average person was thinking, it wasn't that important when compared to the reaction of the rulers of the different superpowers. Compared to normal people who react to things emotionally and take sides, these leaders have completely different perspectives and stance on the subject, as all they could think of while watching these events unfold was how they could gain something from it, exploit it, or defend themselves against possible attacks. Moreover, as a consequence of the previous battle between Lorien and Gojo, which effectively raised the danger level of sorcerers to a brand new height, such fears became much more prevalent. Previously, even though they gave a lot of attention to sorcerers and deemed them as threats, they didn't actually think that they posed any real danger to their rule. However, after witnessing the last battle and especially the last attack, they immediately understood how mistaken they were. Damn it! Are the systems not back online yet? Negative. We are unable to affect the broadcasting in any shape or form. Ugh! Feeling powerless, a long-lost sense of defeat filled the hearts of these leaders. From a large superpower with innumerable weapons of mass destruction to a peaceful state unable to use any of them, it's been ages since they felt so naked. However, if it weren't for this, Japan would have most likely already ushered in a complete nuclear wipeout, which was something Lorien had long expected. So, with all things considered, now that these leaders didn't have any power in their hands, their opinions didn't matter much anymore. Hence, turning our attention towards a more important group of people, which were the remaining Jujutsu sorcerers who had a more personal connection to the battle, we can easily see how their emotions transformed in sequence from shock, despair, anger, surprise, and finally relief. Be it the adults who were holding their breaths in silence trying to remain calm, or the students whose emotions were clearly drawn on their faces without any disguise, all of them fell to the ground following this intense battle. Ha ha ha! Thank God! Nothing happened. I knew it. I knew that they wouldn't truly kill each other. That was too close for comfort. These two are truly on completely different levels. Now you react. However, of the students who were feeling relieved, the one who was the happiest was Maki, who finally relaxed as the huge weight that was pressing on her heart, making it hard for her to breathe, finally fell down. Thankfully, that guy still maintained his reasoning, otherwise, things could have quickly gone south. It's just that in the meantime, at the same time all these people were reacting to the results of the battle, someone was currently taking advantage of the situation to further improve himself. Ha 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 ha. So that's how it is. So that's how it's done. Cutting space. No. That guy didn't just cut space, but even the world itself. His 4 eyes shining brightly in excitement, Sukuna's full attention was focused on the torn-apart sky and more precisely the scar that had no end in sight. Hey? That power is similar to the one that he used on me to prevent me from healing. So it can be used like this. However, what's that power that's trying to remove the after effects of the attack and heal it? Noticing the two forces clashing at the edge of the spatial cut, Sukuna couldn't make sense of it even with his more than 1,000 years of experience. Well, I don't have to understand it for now. I should focus on that cut and analyze it before it disappears. With it, I should be able to achieve the previously set objective and more. Chapter 233, Awakened Yuta. The deeper Sukuna looked at the torn-apart sky, the brighter his eyes became as they shone with both wisdom and joy. If it weren't for him still being sealed, he would have already started laughing maniacally out loud and would have most likely started taunting Lorien for giving him such a chance. It's just that now, Sukuna didn't have time to even enjoy the moment, not to mention taunting anyone else. I must be quick, I won't get another chance like this. Thought Sukuna as his brain and senses worked overtime to gather as much information as they could. Great! This is exactly what I was looking for. From the newfound method of cutting space to the mysterious anti-immortality power he previously suffered from, Sukuna kept disintegrating the information he gathered into bits and pieces. Doing so, he then absorbed and digested it as he merged it into his own CT, pushing his powers into a higher level. Great! This is exactly what I was looking for. All the above powers are basically methods used to target very specific concepts. Based on them, I am able to copy the way they function, however, I still can't find the general method used to target all concepts. It feels like something is missing and I can't put my finger on it. Thinking of this, Sukuna couldn't help but get irritated as he sensed that he was just one step away from reaching a brand new level. Damn it! This is very irritating. What is it? However, what Sukuna didn't know was that all he was seeing was nothing but a mirage in a desert, as the level he sensed was most likely the law level, which is nearly impossible for him to reach in his current state without anything unexpected happening. What is missing? Thinking of this issue for a while, Sukuna's eyes couldn't help but suddenly jump toward Yuta, who was visibly getting stronger by the second. All these powers originated from one person, so his power system might help me. Contemplating this, Sukuna's eyes visibly became more erratic as he waited impatiently for the kid to wake up. Don't mess it up for me, kid. Wake up quickly before that bastard notices that something is wrong. However, just as Sukuna thought of this, a cracking noise suddenly echoed across the shattered cemetery. Crack! Crack! Hey! Could it be? Just then, following the cracking noise, Sukuna suddenly felt his shackles loosening as he restored control of his body. A coincidence? Feeling confused, Sukuna didn't expect that his wish could be immediately fulfilled. It was as if a higher being listened to his prayers and responded to him. This. Still feeling a bit startled, Sukuna completely reacted only after feeling a sudden wave of unknown power pass over his body, prompting him to look in Yuta's direction. Looking there, Sukuna immediately noticed Yuta's now opened eyes looking coldly in his direction. His presence. It's very muffled, he's very hard to detect. Moreover, while I can't tell how strong he currently is, I can at least tell that he's much stronger. However, this doesn't matter much as I'll end it quickly. Additionally, this is a good opportunity to test the new CT applications. Not wasting any moment, Sukuna didn't hold back any power as he launched his CT toward Yuta as he targeted the space he was in. Swish! Bzzz. In an instant, an invisible wave of cutting power reached Yuta before anyone could react. This sudden turn of events caused those watching from all over the world to hold their breaths in anticipation as they waited for Yuta's reaction. We've been waiting for a long time, please, don't die like that. At least make it entertaining. Hey? Are we now getting entertained by people's deaths? Honestly. I don't care anymore, I've long since started considering this as a movie, otherwise, I would go crazy. You should face reality. Bzzz. However, just then as this small debate started heating up, something unexpected happened which caused both parties to fall silent, including Sukuna himself. Swish! At that moment, just as Sukuna's attack was about to land on its target, an identical slash suddenly manifested itself from the unknown, blocking Sukuna's slash midair and causing both attacks to dissipate. However, as they did so, they still left a small spatial SCA which quickly got closed by the world's corrective force as proof of their prior existence. Was that? Did his copying power improve? Immediately realizing what happened, Sukuna instantly became serious as he realized that something was wrong with his opponent. Not only was my CT copied, but even my proficiency. Thinking of this, Sukuna immediately understood that different from what he thought, this would actually be a hard battle. It's all about experience now, however, there is still something I need to test before that. It's just that as Sukuna was preparing himself, Yuta, who had just woken up, was looking around and stretching as it felt like it was decades since he started walking the dream path. Getting attacked as soon as I wake up, no honor it seems. However, speaking of waking up, how long has it been? I can't tell. Time as a concept is very vague in that place, I now feel a bit disconnected from reality. However, it's worth it. Clenching his fists and feeling the immense power hidden within, Yuta then turned his attention to the domain which had passively manifested itself from his body and covered a large radius around him within it. This is... So there are actually modes to it. I didn't know that. Passive covering, open domain, and closed domain, this dream path is really comprehensive. With this, I am confident in killing him. Chapter 234, The Clash begins. Moreover, that's not all. Thought Yuta as he kept continuously clenching and releasing his fists, trying to determine to what level his body had mutated. My physical strength actually increased by such a large margin, it's completely incomparable to before. I didn't expect switching paths to have such an effect. Moreover, it seems that even my soul was also affected by the transformation, as even though I can't clearly tell how strong it had become, I can at least tell that it's stronger than before. Sensing all of the minute changes and roughly determining his current power level, Yuta couldn't help but feel excited as a joyful look appeared on his usually calm and indifferent face. There is also the reverse curse technique. After switching energies, not only did it not lose it, but its effects even increased. Additionally, the neutral energy originating from the dream path also holds suppressive power over cursed energy, which is very similar to how positive energy suppresses it. Realizing this, Yuta, who had been a bit nervous about losing some of his core abilities, finally relaxed as he heaved a sigh of relief. This is even better than I had previously expected. However, while feeling excited, Yuta didn't forget for a moment his current situation, as his attention was then quickly switched toward Sukuna. Even though he had been gauging his current power level, Yuta never actually moved his attention away from Sukuna, as he was still wary of this formidable foe. It's just that as much as he wanted to fully focus on him, he still had to determine his current arsenal before being able to move on to battling him. However, now that he finished with the necessary part, the battle can finally begin. This form, it's truly perfect for Jujutsu, it can even be called the perfect evolution for that power system. Moreover, his physical power is probably quite powerful, so I should avoid direct confrontation unless necessary. Even with my improved physical strength, I am most likely far from being his opponent in that field, so it's better to keep it a medium or long-ranged battle and to take advantage of my superiority in other aspects. Thinking of this, Yuta unsheathed his sword and covered it with neutral energy while adding Sukuna's CT, which he had just learned, on top of it. I really like this cursed technique, it perfectly complements my fighting style without me having to change anything to accommodate it. It's decided. This will be my first pasted technique. Moreover, with Sukuna here, it will be quite easy to push its level to the absolute limit. It's just that meanwhile, when Yuta was observing Sukuna and preparing a battle plan, the latter was also doing the same. That energy surrounding his sword, it's completely new. Hey! Did he master my CT so quickly? Moreover, he even applied it in a different manner to how I used it earlier. It appears that his copying isn't fixed, and instead, he can alter it as he wishes. It seems that I'll have to be a bit careful with what I show in this battle, be it because of H. Rubbing his chin, Sukuna maintained an indifferent expression despite the current state of affairs. Hand-to-hand combat may be my best course of action here. However, there are still a couple of things that I want to try before that. Bzzzzz. Finally organizing his thoughts and getting an overall view of his opponent, Sukuna didn't hesitate any longer as he immediately began his attack. Swish! 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 In an instant, a fishnet-like wave of cutting power rushed toward Yuta, who was preparing his attack, immediately forcing him to switch back into a more defensive posture. If you can do it, then I can also do it. Swish! Swish! Immediately responding with an identical attack of his own, Yuta watched as the two nets made contact, causing the atmosphere to boom, the wind to howl, and the space to squeak and creak like an old wooden floor. Bzzzzz. Squeak. Crackle. However, this standoff only lasted for a couple of moments before the two attacks completely counteracted each other, with both disappearing at the same time. Seeing this, Sukuna shook his head lightly as he couldn't help but start mocking Yuta. "You are quite boring, it seems that you can't come up with anything new." Saying this, Sukuna took advantage of this pause to further analyze Yuta's ability. It's confirmed now. There is no limit to the copied CT. However, it's still unknown if he can copy domain expansion and abilities linked to cursed tools. I highly doubt that, but considering that this is a new power system, nothing is impossible. It's a pity that I don't have any of my cursed tools on me right now. It's just that as Sukuna was further analyzing Yuta's ability, the latter also took advantage of this time to finally prepare and accumulate energy for his next attack. Then here's something new. Bzzzzzzzzzzzzz. Swish. Finally accumulating enough neutral energy and slashing force around his sword's blade, Yuta slashed forward toward Sukuna, who immediately noticed something wrong with the attack. Something's off. Could it be that unknown energy he added to the attack? Not wanting to test how effective this energy is with his body, especially knowing that he might still have to fight later on, Sukuna immediately opted for the safe bet as he decided to boost his CT by using the mouth present of his stomach to chant and the lower two hands for hand signs. This should be enough. Bzzzzz. Swish. Launching a counter-attack of his own, Sukuna watched intently as he wanted to try and gather some new information from the upcoming clash. However, just then, something completely unexpected happened which completely overturned his previous assumptions. Puff. How? Chapter 235, Domain X Realm Clash. Crunch. Crunch. Crack. As an ear-piercing hum which was accompanied by some momentary screeches echoed across the now further destroyed cemetery, flashes of black lighting emerged erratically from the center of their clash. This black lighting looked eerily similar to the clash between two top conquerors Haki in the One Piece world, even the sound was quite similar. However, due to the spatial characteristics of these two attacks, such a scene only lasted for a moment before the space surrounding the clash finally gave in, collapsing like cracked glass under the pressure. Seeing this, Yuta's heart couldn't help but sink down as a feeling of unease filled his heart. Even though he was currently having the upper hand, Yuta wasn't that happy about it. After all, the only reason he was able to achieve this was because he kept sending back an exact copy of each attack he was receiving. If it weren't for that, there was basically no method in his arsenal that would allow him to counter such destructive attacks. Thankfully, I changed paths, otherwise, I would have died quite quickly. However, looking at the center of the clash, Yuta immediately calmed down, suppressing the bad premonition he was getting as he concluded that the situation wasn't actually that bad. After all, he still held quite a few advantages for now. Let's see if the Dream Path's neutral energy is as suppressive to cursed energy as I guessed or not. Bzzzzz. Just as Yuta thought of this, he focused his attention as he waited for some sort of new reaction to appear from the center of the clash. Could it be that I was wrong? However, that makes no sense. It is a well-established fact that all attacks made using cursed techniques are actually constructed from cursed energy. This makes it so that even if someone gets attacked by his own attack, he won't actually get injured, at least not by much. So, with all this considered, shrouding my attack with neutral energy should help dissolve the opponent's attack, and more precisely, the cursed energy that constructed it. Or at least that's what I thought. But then, just as Yuta was giving up on this small experiment of his and was about to move on to the next strategy, something unexpected happened. Puff. With the two attacks touching at zero distance, something amazing took place, shocking not only Sukuna and Yuta but also the international audience who was watching this battle very intently. There, from the contact point, it looked as if Sukuna's attack was a balloon that was leaking air as it started losing mass slowly but surely. This caused the previously established balance to immediately collapse, with Yuta's attack swiftly overwhelming Sukuna's as it then rushed towards the later at unbelievable speeds. Crunch. How? His eyes widened in shock. Sukuna looked stunned at the scene in front of him. However, while that was the case, he still maintained his calm as he swiftly threw a few more attacks toward Yuta's slash, causing it to finally lose its power and disappear. What was that? It's the energy, isn't it? It seems that I've made a mistake. This energy isn't actually a new one, instead, it's more of an evolution of cursed energy. Thinking of this, Sukuna grew more excited as this was actually a piece of very good news for him. This is even better, my chances just rose exponentially. However, this also means that I have to be a bit more cautious. I must not waste any more time with this fruitless game of tug of war. Maybe. However, just then, before Sukuna could further scheme his way to victory, Yuta interrupted him by suddenly switching tactics as the markings of serpent eyes and fang appeared on his cheeks and tongue. Cursed speech, don't move. Howling this, a powerful slashing attack then appeared surrounding Yuta's sword. It's just that contrary to what he expected, Sukuna didn't react to this command as he instead looked at Yuta mockingly and said, "Brat, I've been watching you fight for so long, you don't expect me to not think of any counters for your techniques, right? Hey! Cursed speech, quite the interesting ability, however, countering it is also very simple as all that is needed is manipulating the flow of cursed energy to the brain's section that controls ear function. By doing so it prevents words and commands from the cursed speech, or at least the curse energy which reinforces those commands from being registered and executed." Hearing this, Yuta, who was preparing for a combo, froze in his tracks, not expecting such a progression. This was also noticed by Sukuna, who just shook his head in regret and continued his speech. "As I have already stated, your ability isn't that bad, it's just a pity that it hasn't grown to its full potential." Saying this, Sukuna didn't try to attack again using normal slashes as he knew that such attacks were simply useless. So, with his two bottom hands making a hand sign, a wide malevolent grin manifested itself on Sukuna's face as he said, "I'm now a bit curious, can you copy this? Domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine." Realizing what was happening, Yuta knew that he didn't have any other choice at the moment other than entering into a domain clash, otherwise, he would be nothing more than a fish on the cutting board. So, immediately dispelling that attack that he was preparing, Yuta also made a hand sign that he didn't actually need as he also launching his own domain/realm. "I hope the realm/domain born from this path is strong, otherwise, I'm dead. By the way, what should I call it? Domain expansion, realm expansion? Whatever, let's keep using the old one. Domain expansion, mirrored realm."
Thanks for listening.